Chapter 57. That night, it rained heavily. Under the dim light of dusk, only the sound of water pouring could be heard. From the front to the horizon, in the vast wilderness, everything fell in pieces in the rain, broken and gathered into a turbid stream. A black boot stepped on the turbid stream, splashing water everywhere. Looking up, a man in a straw cape and bamboo hat looked coldly at the rugged mountain road in front of him. His qigong was extremely extraordinary. Even in such bad weather, he was still able to freely jump between the cliffs and boulders. The slippery stone walls were trampled by him, leaving shallow holes in them. He was like an antelope, traversing the steep mountain road. He looked left and right. A few indistinct figures flashed and disappeared not far away. They were also dressed like him. The man raised his head slightly and looked at the faintly discernible hilltop in the distance in the rain curtain of the night. That was the headquarters of the Ming cult, where the sacred fire cave was located. It was less than 10 miles away from them. In the dark night, dozens of such people were moving forward. A young man in green walked in front of them. He held a light oil paper umbrella in his hand. However, no matter how violent the rain outside was, it could not squeeze into the small oil paper umbrella. This green-clothed man had a dry and clean body. The person next to him was not so lucky. Even though he was covered up tightly, Huang Chang's body was still somewhat damp. He raised the bamboo hat on his head and loudly said, "Commander-in-Chief, although it is a full moon night, the weather is so bad. I'm afraid this is not the right time." "That's great. If there is a fight later, we won't have to worry about cleaning the ground." Holding the umbrella, Chun Ong strolled in the heavy rain. He smiled faintly and said, "The rain can cover up many things. Some traces, some things that are about to happen. Things that are happening, they're all happening quietly in the rain. Under this heavy rain, something will happen. Some of it will be us, and some of it will be others. The rain is the best cover for evil." Huang Chang frowned. He did not understand what this meant. Suddenly, he noticed an inconspicuous trace of red in the water under his feet. Following the trace of the water, he saw a few Ming cult disciples lying on the side with their bodies twisted. On their pale faces, a pair of eyes were wide open, filled with confusion and confusion. "Military governor," Huang Chang exclaimed in shock. A bolt of lightning struck not too far away. As the lightning shone, the faces of those who died with their eyes wide open looked incredibly savage and bizarre. Not too far away, a Ming cult disciple was pierced by a long sword and pinned to a tree. His eyes were fixed in front of him, and there was pain, anger, and a nameless sadness on his face. Such a wound, so fierce, so sharp. Huang Chang went up to check and sighed. The person wielding the sword does not have a deep inner force, but his sword technique is vicious and sharp, far surpassing that of a normal expert. This kind of style can only be done by an assassin. Not only is she an assassin, she's also a woman. Chen Ong glanced at the sword wound and said faintly, "She is a very beautiful and meticulous woman. She is like makeup, meticulous and subtle." She gave him a sword, which is why there is such a clean wound. "It looks like we have run into some interesting things. The rainy night, the murder, the woman, and the duelists who had come knocking on their door caused the waters of Ming cult to become murky before they could even begin to tremble intensely. Some things were quietly fermenting with the arrival of Chun Ong and the others." Chun Ong looked at the brightly lit headquarters of Ming cult and smiled faintly. He was in the middle of a heavy rain, but all the patrolling Ming cult disciples ignored him. He stepped on the puddles of water and entered the headquarters, which was heavily guarded. Wherever he went, the Ming cult disciples' gazes would become slightly dazed, and they would be easily controlled by the people in the woven rush raincoats. Without a sound, a large portion of the Ming cult's patrolling system was missing. One by one, the Ming cult disciples fell to the ground and were replaced by the dragon stallion guards dressed in bright red flying fish robes. Just like that, Chenong approached the headquarters of Ming cult to discuss matters. Tonight, the place was brightly lit. The flickering candlelight shone through the thick screen window and shone on Chenang's body. The sound of an intense argument came from inside. A rough and loud voice roared, We can't let this matter go like this. We can't. A debt of blood must be repaid with blood. We will rebel. We will rebel against that son of AB*TCH. We will take revenge for Big Brother Sure. Shut up, Fong La shouted angrily. Fong Jie, sit down. He looked around at the bustling Ming cult disciples in the hall. When he saw their indignant gazes and how they gripped their weapons tightly, he let out a long sigh and closed his eyes. He listened to his own heartbeat. In the blink of an eye, the room became deathly silent. After a long time, Fong La said bitterly, "Before we get to the bottom of this matter, none of you can jump to conclusions. What else is there that we can't figure out?" Fong Jie couldn't stand it anymore. Ignoring the pulling of the people around him, he jumped out and said, "That dog official injured Sherfa Wang. He only lasted a few days before he died. Is the truth still not clear? What we want is revenge. We must seek justice from the imperial court." "What justice?" Fong La sneered. "The imperial court killed a traitor. What justice do you want?" Fong Jie was slightly taken aback. He didn't expect his uncle to say this. His uncle's determination to rebel against the imperial court had always been the strongest. Why was he now acting like a pacifist? He stiffened his neck and said, "Killing that dog official is justice. When the revered Ming descends, the world will be at peace." The Great Song Dynasty's imperial court went against the grain and provoked the resentment of the people. The world is not at peace. Therefore, according to the teachings, we let the revered Ming descend to the world so that everyone is equal and can enjoy peace. This is our justice. Fong La turned to look at the crowd and said word by word, "For this justice, everyone risked their lives and threw away their families' lives. Isn't dying in the hands of the imperial court a matter of seeking justice and obtaining it?" This sentence was spoken loudly. "The imperial court wants to kill me in the name of righteousness, but I fight against it under the banner of justice. Isn't it reasonable for us to fight to the death? What's there to complain about? Are we supposed to hope that the imperial court will let us live?" Everyone gripped their long sabers tightly. Their anger turned into determination. "Well said, Cult Master Fong. We're already in a life-or-death relationship. It's normal for us to have casualties. It's ridiculous to talk about justice." A cold voice came from outside the door. "Who's there?" Fong Jie shouted. Pang Wan-chun, who was beside him, pulled his four-pickle iron body bow. A sharp arrow pierced through the air and shot out of the door. The arrow pierced through the door, and the sound of the bowstring was heard. In a flash, a fatal arrow was released. The voice outside the door chuckled. The door creaked. A green figure walked in, holding a refined iron arrow in his hand. Chenong smiled and said, "Weren't you waiting for me? You dog official, you still dare to come here. Today, I will avenge Brother Sure." Fong Jie looked at Chenong with eyes full of hatred and a deep sense of jealousy. Sometimes, the justice that supported a person was the kind of resentment and jealousy towards injustice. Their hatred towards injustice was not so much the hatred towards injustice itself, but rather the jealousy towards the other side of injustice and the hatred towards those who benefited from injustice. When they became the ones benefiting from injustice, they would defend this injustice tenfold. Chenong sighed slightly. From the perspective of the core members of the Ming cult like Fong Jie, looking at their aspirations and awareness, the Ming cult was only SOSO. He looked at Fong Jie and smiled. He said lazily, "You want to avenge Sure Bao? Then you've got the wrong person. Since I spared his life, why would I go through so much trouble to kill him? I don't care about people like him. Brother Sure was injured by your hand, and he couldn't be treated. If it wasn't you, who else could it be?" Fong Jie asked angrily. "Could it be us who did it? I'm afraid you've misunderstood me." Chenong interrupted indifferently. "Do you think I'm explaining to you? I'm just stating a fact. Whether you believe it or not, what does it have to do with me? That's your choice, and I'm just deciding the outcome of your choice." Chenong didn't care about the attitude of the Ming cult people. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. Did a chariot need to care about the attitude of a mantis? It only gave a result. He stated a fact, not to change the attitude of others, but because of his habit of being realistic. He was also very realistic about the reactions of others. They were calm, and it had nothing to do with Chenong. If they were impulsive, they would be crushed. How dare you? You're asking for death. The Ming cult people in the hall were angered by Chun Ang's condescending attitude, and they started scolding him. A few of the more hot-tempered cult members were even more restless, and they were about to draw their swords. Fong La glanced at them, and they became obedient. However, there were still people who were unwilling to give up, and they said, "A dog official of the imperial court killed my brother. He deserves to die 1,000 times. We can't let him go." As soon as he said that, many people agreed. Fong La sighed and said, "The imperial court and the Ming cult are like fire and water. You and I are in a life-or-death situation. Today's battle is inevitable. I've already made a conclusion about Shi Bao's death. It's not because of this groundless accusation, but because we stand on different sides." "That's right. I finally met someone who understands." Chen Ong smiled faintly and said, "Cult leader, please." Chapter 58. The rainwater poured down on the bluestone slabs and hit the green oil paper umbrella, splashing countless tiny water droplets, forming a thin layer of mist that covered Chun Ang's frail figure under the umbrella. A bolt of lightning cut through the sky, and the dazzling electric light illuminated the peak of the sacred fire cave. At the peak, the blurry figure was hidden in the thin mist. In the rolling thunder, Fong La took off his coat, revealing his strong chest. The rain slid down his back, and a few frightening old wounds hovered around his vital parts like centipedes. These hideous wounds caused even Huang Chang's expression to change. Although they had already healed, one could imagine just how frightening and dangerous they had been just by looking at the terrifying wounds that were close to their vitals. The Ming cult's Dharmarajas stood behind Fong La, letting the rain fall on them. Every one of them was a top-notch master, and they had fought their way through mountains of corpses and seas of blood. It would not be an exaggeration to say that they had been through hundreds of battles. However, they were willing to submit to the man named Fong La. Some of them had amazing aptitude and had mastered the peerless skills that few people had mastered. Some were born in famous families and had been practicing martial arts for decades. Some had fought their way up from the bottom, and with their bravery, they gained their strength. However, it was Fong La, an ordinary person from a farmer's family, who intimidated all of them and became the real cult master of the Ming cult. Huang Chang looked at Fong La, who was walking up the high platform with a solemn expression that had never been seen before. Although he was not involved in Jianghu, when it came to foresight, even the 4 great Ming cult's Dharmarajas could not compare to him. It was only dozens of steps from the door to the high platform. The water on the flagstones and the raindrops collided with each other, creating countless tiny ripples. If someone stepped on the water, he would definitely feel the softness of the water and the slight splashes when his skin touched the water. Naughty children in the heavy rain loved this feeling. There were also many people who hated this damp feeling. Even if they were careful and meticulous, they could not avoid the splashes on the ground, and the rolling mist would wet their trousers. This kind of trouble was unavoidable. However, Huang Chang discovered that Fong La's trousers were dry. The rainwater dripped down his chest and hit his body forcefully. However, it was as if the rainwater had hit a sponge and was firmly attached to the surface of his skin. Soon, a layer of water film coated his body. When he stepped into the puddle, it was as if he was sinking into the water bit by bit. There was no sound, no ripples, and the rising mist couldn't even get close to his skin. It gathered into water droplets and dripped down again. This was the most wonderful strength. There are some experts in Jianghu who do not have more than 30% of their martial arts skills. They boast about their martial arts skills by not spilling wine when they are in the air and their sword piercing through the tofu in the palm without injuring the opponent. They should really see Fong La's performance at this moment. Countless tiny, messy, and unpredictable water droplets of different sizes, light or heavy, flew towards Fong La's body like headless flies. Complicated and trivial forces came from different directions, at different speeds, and from different directions. At this moment, The complicated changes of forces could be called the most marvelous hidden weapon in the world. No one could escape from the attack of water in the heavy rain. This was the world's most frightening hidden weapon. It was unpredictable, it was secretive, it was silent, and often unknowingly, it would wet your clothes. If you let the Tang sect's most formidable hidden weapon experts see this rain, would he have the slightest thought of resisting? If the best person in the world with the best skills and the best body movement, could he escape and catch the heavy rain that was everywhere? However, Fong La had done this. He had received all the raindrops that had struck him. Every single bit of force, every single inconspicuous contact, Fong La had neutralized them one by one, diverting their power. He was like a master who borrowed the force to fight against countless attacks at the same time. The heaven and earth great shift. This was the real heaven and earth great shift. It was the best in controlling the force in the world, and it could be called the peerless martial art master outline of force. In front of it, all the martial arts that paid attention to the exquisite force were like jokes. Those complicated martial arts that no one in the world could master, that only one genius appeared in hundreds of years, and that they spent their whole lives to learn and polish. Fong La could be 10 times more proficient than their creators in just one encounter. As for the control of force, there was no martial art in the world that could surpass its scope. With Fong La, the most powerful cult leader in the history of the Ming cult, his attainments in this martial art for decades, and Chunang's full guidance, the change of yin and yang, the borrowing force to fight against force, and the shifting of force, he completed its core. That was how it created the peerless martial art that was unprecedented in history. Congratulations, Chunang said happily. Fong La walked in front of it and sighed. It was not until just now that I felt the joy of martial arts. I could describe the way of heaven, the unrestrained freedom, and the great liberation. This is the only moment in my life that I can understand the joy of martial arts. When a person does something wholeheartedly, he will be extremely happy. You have to really love this thing to feel its charm, Chunang said to him with a smile. Fong La said, I didn't understand you at first. It was not until I stood here that I realized how rare it is to have an opponent who is on par with me. It's my luck to have such an opponent, Chunang said with a smile. It's also my luck to see the 8th level of the heaven and earth great shift. In the Ming cult, when the heaven and earth great shift was only at the 6th level, it was already a rare divine martial art in the world. The cult leaders of the past could only reach the 6th level, but they were already the top masters in the martial arts world. This time, with the help of Fong La's decades of accumulation, Chun Ang's supreme wisdom of martial arts, and the essence of the martial arts of the Laughing Ao world and the Celestial Dragon world, were pushed to the 9th level of the heaven and earth great shift. It must be extremely brilliant and splendid. Chunang was looking forward to it. He put down the oil paper umbrella in his hand and stepped into the heavy rain. The raindrops fell on him and slid down without any resistance, creating a curtain of water. Chunang stepped on the stone floor and soared into the sky. Like a flood dragon in the clouds, he swam freely in the curtain of rain. The water droplets he sprayed with different strengths and sizes pounced at Fong La. A finger was waiting behind the water droplets. Without any sign of smoke or fire, he pointed at the water droplets freely. Chunang flashed through the heavy rain and pointed at Fong La. Countless hidden strengths were hidden in the countless water droplets. Each water droplet could hide a world. At least, that was the case for Chunang. The weird strength destroyed the balance of yin and yang and reversed the breath of the human body. That was the sickness natural qi. Those who were injured by the sickness natural qi would be seriously ill. The way of yin and yang could bring the dead back to life, but could also destroy the vitality. This was no longer a martial art that could hurt people, but a kind of divine medical skill. Fong La folded his palms and turned around. His hands are like a door blocking the way around him. When the splashing water droplets hit his hands, no matter how strong or how weird the hidden strength was, they were all diverted by a round strength and guided in the direction for which he hit. The water droplets in the air gathered into a palm-sized water ball, floating in the air weirdly. Even if the force of the water ball was complicated and changeable, and Chunang's chi force was strange and unpredictable, when it met with the smooth and round force, it reversed the force and sorted out the yin and yang. The marvelousness of the heaven and earth great shift was brought into full play. The endless force was locked in a small water ball. The heavy rain fell on Fong La's body, but slid down powerlessly. Even this little bit of force was stored in the water ball. The force that Chun'ang sent over was collected and gradually accumulated. Fong La smiled and returned his hands. It was like a big lake filled with water when a mountain torrent broke out. The water ball dispersed silently, but the force poured out along with Fong La's great strength, like the dam of a lake had broken and the flood was rushing out. He took Chun'ang's force and sent it out as if the two of them were joining hands. Was there anyone in the world who could withstand the joint attack of Chun'ang and Fong La? Chun'ang's finger followed closely behind, meeting this explosive attack. If it was a direct hit, the finger bones, wrist bones, arm bones, shoulder bones, and ribs would all be broken. The tendons and bones would be crushed, the internal organs would be burnt, and a strange energy would cause the yin and yang qi to be reversed, and all kinds of diseases would occur at the same time. Even if the immortals from heaven came, they would also die miserably. However, it just so happened that it was Chun'ang who had mastered the heaven and earth great shift. There were only two people in the world who could reach the pinnacle. One was Fong La, and the other was Chun'ang. The two of them, one on the inside and the other on the outside, had each perfected the profound mysteries of this divine skill. Although Chun'ang had not comprehended half of what Fong La had learned, he knew about half of the mystery of the heaven and earth great shift, because it was a martial art created and deduced by the two of them. Chapter 59. As soon as Fong La used the magic of the heaven and earth great shift, Chun'ang understood a little bit of it. This martial art was not obscure at all in front of him. At this moment, Fong La was like a living secret manual, demonstrating all the mysteries of the heaven and earth great shift. Being connected with nature and being an integral part of nature, Chun'ang's finger was like a swan goose treading on snow and mud, leaving no trace. The claw print was still there, but the swan goose had already disappeared. The shadow of the finger could be seen clearly, but his spirit had forgotten everything and was assimilated with the heaven and earth. Fong La's surging force hit the air. Even when his palm and finger met, he only felt that the air in front of him could not bear the force, and the finger seemed to be illusory. Obviously, there was infinite force, but it hit the void. The void could not bear the force, and emptiness triumphed strength. If the heaven and earth great shift was the pinnacle of application, then this move of Chun'ang's could be said to be the exquisite response of emptiness to reality. Between the two, one had inexhaustible force, and the more he fought, the stronger he became, and the other had no leakage force and no weakness. It was a case of meeting one's match. In the heavy rain, a strange scene was formed. Chun'ang's fingertips seemed to be the void, and the rainwater around him dripped down, forming a funnel-shaped space on his fingertips. Sticking to Chun'ang's body, the rainwater converged into two water dragons that spread down. The rainwater that had been falling down was moving close to his body. Deng Yuanjue and the others were shocked. With their eyesight, they could naturally see that Chun'ang's strength had disappeared without a trace, and he was in a state of emptiness. Even the rainwater in the sky could not touch his strength, and the heaven and earth great shift could not borrow any strength. His wisdom and martial arts could be regarded as peerless. The raindrops that hit Fong La's body seemed to have hit an elastic gel, which changed the direction of the force. The strength of the force bounced, collided, and splashed out on the surface of his skin. The water droplets failed to leave any trace on his skin. Countless tiny forces converged into one and struck at Chun'ang, subduing hardness with softness, suppressing the real with the illusory. Chun'ang had borrowed his origin power's sense of the void and invested his essence, energy, and spirit to counter the real with the illusory. Although it was difficult for him to take the initiative, he was able to deal with the great universal shift with relative ease. Fong La's palm arts were sharp and his moves profound, but there was a sense of emptiness where he couldn't exert force. Every move was filled with great strength, but they all hit empty air. The Dharma Kings of the Ming cult all looked solemn. They had overestimated Chun Ang's martial arts, but they did not expect that Chun Ang was 10 times more powerful than they had expected. Fong La had been reborn in just 20 days, and his martial arts had advanced beyond their imagination. But Chun Ang still had the upper hand. If they had not seen it with their own eyes, none of them would have believed such a joke. But they, who had been clamoring for punishment and revenge, were more like a joke. Fong Jie's face was pale, and his face was full of disbelief. He finally understood that if it were not for Fong La, even if there were 10 more people like him, it would only be a matter for Chun Ang to make a move. The revenge and blood feud he had talked about before seemed even more like a joke. Under Chun Ang's suppression, the Ming cult was already in grave danger. They did not even have the power to protect themselves, so how could they pursue the matter? The Ming cult's resistance against the imperial court was based on the martial arts skills of the cult members. Their elites were far superior to the imperial court's army, which was why the local authorities did not dare to act rashly and allowed the Ming cult to carve out a large piece of territory. But it was not until Chun Ang came that they felt the pressure of Mount Tai pressing down on them. The situation had long been reversed. Not to mention the Dharma Kings and the emissaries, the lives of the vast number of people at the grassroots level were hanging on Chun Ang's thoughts. One wrong move, and Mount Tai crushed an egg, and hundreds of thousands of believers would be destroyed, their families destroyed, and their cult destroyed. Even if they could fight back a little, it would be difficult to change the situation. This was the Ming cult's life and death situation. What Fong Jie had done before was like a newborn jackal challenging a lion. He did not understand that the current situation was not about the Ming cult doing anything to Chun Ang, but how Chun Ang would deal with the Ming cult. Fong La's only hope was to defeat Chun Ang and maintain the only advantage they had over the imperial court. Fong Jie was immersed in Jianghu, the Ming cult's reputation of not going back on its word, and its prestige of killing officials and rebelling. He did not understand that it had always been the weak who gave the strong an explanation. Why did the strong need to explain so much to the weak? That was why he tried to provoke them and was reprimanded by Fong La. The Ming cult's survival depended on Fong La's shoulders. How could Fong Jie and the others feel such a heavy pressure? Fong La was already a little anxious. Even though the heaven and earth great shift was unparalleled, it could not shake Chun Ang at all. He had used all his strength, but he was only on par with him. The Ming cult could not bear such an ending. He reached behind him and took out 2 long and narrow tokens from his waist. When the rainwater hit the tokens, there was a faint flame that changed its color. His body twisted, and his whole body suddenly fell in an incomparably strange posture. The tokens seemed to have turned into a nimble, poisonous snake, hissing and hissing. The originally righteous palm technique suddenly turned into a sinister and strange body movement. In Fong La's hand, the tokens were like a ball of twisted light and shadow. Together with the exquisite power, they entangled around Chun Ang layer by layer. The cold and fierce light and shadow were erratic, like a sinister wind or a ghost, strange and unpredictable. This was a strange martial art originating from Persia. It was very different from the common sense of the Central Plains. The divine skill of the Sheng Huoling was a sinister and strange attack. Although this martial art was passed down to the Persian cult, it was not in line with the character of the Ming cult's successive cult leaders. Therefore, it was more symbolic than practical. But today, Fong La was forced into a corner by Chun Ang, so he had no choice but to use this martial art that was not in line with his character. But Fong La would never have imagined that Chun Ang was familiar with all the languages in the world. He could even be said to be proficient in the tadpole heavenly script and the neon talisman, let alone the Persian language. The martial art of the Sheng Huoling was not concealed. As soon as it was taken out, he saw it. With the secret manual as a reference, Chenong was able to figure out the Sheng Huoling's martial art in just 2 or 3 moves. This kind of unorthodox martial art was the pinnacle of its power. Perhaps he would be at a disadvantage if he encountered a master of the Central Plains who was not familiar with the Persian martial art. But if he encountered Chenong, who was also proficient in this martial art, he would be in big trouble. The way of martial art was to restrain the strange. As soon as Fong La's routine was figured out, the situation fell into Chun Ang's control. His palms spread out like 1,000 blooming lotuses. They turned into palm prints that filled the sky and restrained the energy that pervaded the battlefield. The Ming cult's 4 great guardian kings' countenances changed drastically. What appeared in Chun Ang's hands was the Qian Kun de Nui, which they regarded as their cult's most treasured divine skill. In Chun Ang's hands, this martial art had a completely different transformation. Other than some obvious shadows, it could be regarded as another martial art that was exactly the same as the original one. Fong La steadied his mind and focused all his attention on the battle. He did not think too much about it. He advanced and retreated at the same time. The Sheng Huoling in his hands was full of changes, but a force that followed him like a shadow was diverting and neutralizing his strength. Both of their forces were facing each other. It was like 2 masters of balance who were destroying each other's center of gravity. All of a sudden, the force that Chun Ang had directed was restrained. Like a real force, it struck the void. Fong La was puzzled. He carefully protected his vital parts. At the same time, the 2 forces intertwined and entangled around Chun Ang's body. In the void, it was as if a piece of void had been emptied. Suddenly, a strong suction force burst out and deviated from Fong La's force. Chenong waved his hand casually. All kinds of strange force fields were generated in the void. Waves after waves of strange force affected Fong La's senses. Like walking into a trap, Fong La crashed into the force field that Chun Ang had set up. Fong La felt that Chun Ang had already seen through his martial art style and inner force. In the blink of an eye, he had fallen into Chun Ang's rhythm. His body also became sluggish. An empty force had trapped Fong La. Chun Ang gently pointed his finger at Fong La's body. A complicated force intertwined and sealed his movements. Several waves of strange inner force sealed the major acupoints all over his body. Fong La could not hold on any longer. Even though he had the Qian Kun to reverse his acupoints and neutralize the strange inner force, his face turned pale. He staggered a few steps back and leaned against the wall weakly. Sec Master! The Dharmarajas were burning with anxiety. They rushed forward and surrounded Fong La on all 3 sides, keeping their guard up as they checked on Fong La's injuries. Deng Yuanjue probed Fong La's body with his inner energy, but he felt that Fong La's body was in a mess. His inner energy was out of control and clashed violently. If he was not careful, he would trigger a counterattack from Fong La's inner energy. Deng Yuanjue felt a mysterious inner force rushing toward him. He did not dare to resist, fearing that he would hurt Fong La and aggravate his injury. Therefore, he allowed the force to enter his body and only used his inner force to wear it down. Deng Yuanjue coughed up a mouthful of blood. The remaining Ming cult higher-ups supported Deng Yuanjue's swaying body and shouted anxiously, "Dharmaraja, Monk Deng, I'm fine." After Deng spat out a mouthful of blood, the tightness in his chest dissipated a little. "This is bad." A Ming cult disciple rushed over and hastily said, "The officers and soldiers at the foot of the mountain are attacking us. They know the terrain and the mechanism of the mountain like the back of their hand. There are also people who are providing support in secret. They have already broken into the headquarters." What? The people of the Ming cult were shocked. In the distance, there were already flickering lanterns and battle cries. Dozens of men in woven rush raincoats appeared around them and surrounded Chenong. The backbone of the flags of 5 elements, the flagmaster, was tied to one side. In the distance, the officers and soldiers held strong bows and crossbows in their hands. They advanced and retreated in an orderly manner. With the help of the men in woven rush raincoats, The people of the Ming cult were forced to retreat. In front of the Dharmaraja, there was Chun Ong blocking their way. Behind them, there was an army attacking the mountain. They could neither advance nor retreat. They were trapped in a dead end. It seems that I have won this battle by a small margin. Chun Ong smiled with his hands behind his back. He picked up the oil paper umbrella beside him and held it over his head. Drops of water dripped down and fell into the puddles, making a crisp sound. Fong La struggled to get up. His expression was calm. He said to Chun Ong, "Your Excellency's skills are superior. The outcome of the battle is clear to you. Today, the Ming cult has met with a great calamity. However, the ups and downs of the times are difficult and dangerous. We have already regarded it as normal. The previous cult masters have all died suddenly. The Ming cult has also faced the danger of being wiped out. Life and death are normal for us. As long as the sacred flame is not extinguished, the cult will not perish." Chapter 60. Fong La struggled to stand still. He sighed and said, "But there's one thing I don't understand. I hope you can help me. The Sacred Fire Cave is full of traps, and the terrain is rugged and complicated. The Ming cult has been here for many years. How did you get the secrets of this place?" Chun Ong smiled and said indifferently, 10 days ago, someone sent me a secret letter. Not only did it contain many of the Ming cult secrets, it also contained a map of the terrain and mechanisms. It described the various secret passages and sentry posts of the Ming cult. Is that true?" Fong La sighed deeply. He had been calm all this time, but now his hands were trembling. Although that person avoided meeting me, I knew that she was a woman, and a beautiful one at that. The more beautiful a woman is, the better she is at lying. "Huh?" Fong La shook his head and said, "Brother, sure, it's my fault." The Ming cult's Dharmaraja and envoys looked gloomy. Fong Jiem murmured, "The Saintess, it's the Saintess." Their eyes were full of shock and hatred. A painful silence spread among the crowd. They could accept the enemy's killing, but they could not tolerate the betrayal of their own people. "Followers, listen," Fong La said excitedly. "Protect the women and children. Follow me to the Ming cult's palace." Fong La and the followers retreated to the sacred fire altar while protecting the women and children. Chun Ong stood where he was and showed no intention of pursuing them. Huang Shang hesitated for a moment. Seeing that Chun Ong did not respond, he ordered loudly, "Soldiers, listen. Beat the Ming cult followers with sticks. Those who don't resist, kneel down. Capture them first. Don't kill too many people." He added, "Dragon Stallion guards, send a team to put out any fire you see. If you see anyone disturbing the women and children and killing the innocent, kill them immediately." At this moment, the Ming cult's people knew that they had lost the day. The ordinary disciples did not dare to resist the soldiers who were like wolves and tigers. They obediently allowed themselves to be captured. Only a group of core members resisted. However, they were easily knocked to the ground by the Dragon Stallion guards. Although they cried out in pain, they were not in any life-threatening danger. Under the supervision of the Song Army, they were disciplined. It was rare that there were no disturbances, killings, or arson. They organized the sacred fire cave in an orderly manner. Seeing this, Fong La's eyebrows relaxed a little. He said to Huang Shang, "Your Excellency's kindness has made the Ming cult's living people helpless. I'm deeply grateful." Huang Shang flicked his sleeves and waved his hand. "No need. You have confused the hearts of the people and bewitched them. They have all been implicated by you. The common people are all citizens of the Song dynasty. They are innocent people, but you deserve to die. I'm only upholding the benevolence and do not deserve the gratitude of a traitor like you." Fong La was standing under the altar of the Lord of Light's holy fire with a group of core followers. Hearing Huang Chang's words, he laughed and said, "It's not that I'm deluding people. It's just that people's minds change. The followers here are all poor people, and their lives are worse than that of pigs and dogs. We've risen up to uphold the doctrine of equality. That's why we're as close as brothers. That's the only way we have dignity. The Lord of Light is merciful. Illuminate the world with the sacred fire and fill the world with light." He struggled to get rid of the support of the crowd and sat down cross-legged. He spread his fingers in front of his chest and made the shape of a soaring flame. The followers of the Ming cult present chanted in unison, "Burn my broken body with the sacred fire." What joy is there in life? What bitterness is there in death? For good and evil, only the light is there. Joy, joy, sorrow, and sorrow all return to dust. Pity the people of our world. They have so many troubles. Pity the people of our world. They have so many troubles. The various guardian kings and disciples all had solemn expressions. They did not fear the destruction of their sect at all. Their awe-inspiring auras intimidated the Song army into not daring to move forward. Chun Ong slowly walked over to them. What spirit and breadth of mind! Unfortunately, the difference in your cultivation is too great. You have the heart to change the world, but you do not have the ability to rebuild mountains and rivers. Even if your sacred fire illuminates the world, you're just another imperial court in the guise of a cult. You're even more vicious and ruthless. Compared to the current Song dynasty, you're nothing. Fong Jie scolded. What do you know, you dog official? Chenong was not angry. He said indifferently, I don't see the slightest bit of light and equality in you. Isn't the doctrine of a cult ridiculous if it's like this? Even the ordinary followers have to farm and provide for you. Even the Dharmaraja and banner leaders have silk and satin all over their bodies. Even if they put on a linen coat, they can hide the corruption inside. Deng Yinjue put his palms together and said, The Lord of Light came to the world to deliver all living things. All living things have a heart of light. They struggle out of the darkness. Only under the sacred fire can the world be at peace. We enjoy light and peace in the cult. We want everyone to be like us. That's the real intention of the Ming cult. You're too narrow-minded. You're too stupid. You can't achieve great things by relying on the gods and Buddhas. You have a heart of darkness, but you only know how to vent your anger. You're too stupid. Chenong sighed. It's too high of a compliment to call you revolutionaries. What's a revolution? Fong La asked in a low voice. To change the world, eliminate injustice, and create a new world. That's a revolution. Chin Ong said indifferently. Forget it. You haven't even opened your eyes. How can you explore? Chase after it? It's a ghost. It will inevitably wander in the sky of this world again. It will shout, there has never been a savior. We don't rely on gods and emperors. We have to rely on ourselves to create human happiness. Compared to that specter, your so-called ambitions are too laughable. Commander-in-Chief. Huang Shang frowned. I'm just kidding. I thought of a real traitor. Compared to that, the Ming cult is just a disease. If we have disciples like Cheng Pan, Chun Ku, and Li Dasheng, will be a big problem for the imperial court. Chenong waved his hand. Huang Shang didn't understand, so he just stood on the side in silence. The Ming cult people didn't feel anything either. Deng Yunjue, however, had a thoughtful look in his eyes. Suddenly a large crack appeared under Ming Zun's platform. Fong La leaped up and brandished the iron staff in Ming Zun's hand, blocking the way in front of the crowd. He shouted, Quickly get inside. Run inside. Not only did the Song army fail to react, even the Ming cult members were startled. Chenong, on the other hand, looked indifferent as he said leisurely, So you're testing me as an informant because you want to know if I know about this secret passage or not. Looks like you're not sure that the Holy Maiden doesn't know about this place. This is the most confidential place in the Ming cult. Only the hierarch of each generation knows about it. But I was too careless. I wasn't sure if I had leaked this information in front of Roji, Bai Shang. That's why I tested you. Fong La explained to buy time for the women and children behind him. What he didn't know was that Chenong had no intention of keeping them here. That was why he was nagging. He was oppressing a group of Wulin's sects, not wiping them out. If he couldn't let Fong La escape, how could he work hard and push the martial arts of the Ming cult to a higher level? At this time, Deng Yunjue suddenly pointed a finger behind Fong La's back and sealed his major acupoint. Before the Ming cult members could react in shock, Deng Yunjue shoved a cult leader over. They supported Fong La and retreated to the entrance of the cave. They saw this big monk standing in front of them with his iron staff. "You take the hierarch and leave first. I'll block the pursuers for you," Deng Yuanjue said in a low voice. Looking at the sorrowful followers, he laughed and said, "Go now. Don't act like a little girl." As he spoke, he reached out and touched Ming Zun. The underground tunnel began to shake. The crowd quickly retreated to the depths of the tunnel. They saw hundreds of thousands of kilograms of earth and rocks suddenly collapse and seal the entrance tightly, separating them from Deng Yuanjue. Deng Yuanjue was the one who knew about the secret passage. He seemed to be rough, but he was actually a meticulous person. He had discovered this secret long ago. Deng Yuanjue looked calm. He put his palms together and said, "I'll surrender. I don't know how you're going to deal with these followers. I'm willing to join them." He had the last chance to escape. With his body movement, it was not difficult for him to flash into the tunnel before it collapsed. The Ming cult people thought he was going to stall Chenong, but in fact he was going to live and die with the tens of thousands of followers here. The West Xia army was defeated the day before yesterday. The king of West Xia was captured. The Hetao area is in the hands of the Song dynasty. In the Qingtang, the West region needs Han people to guard the border. Yuming cult people are skilled in martial arts and outstanding in archery and horseback riding. You can intimidate those restless Dongxiang people. There are hundreds of thousands of followers here. You should migrate to the border. Chenong smiled and said, "You can attack the West region and spread your religion there. But the people there are tough, so you must be careful. I haven't been to the West region, but I heard that the bright peak on Mount Kunlun is a good place." Deng Yuanjue bowed slightly and stood among the followers. When they heard that they were going to leave their homeland, there was a bit of commotion. But to be able to keep their lives is already a good thing. They can only rejoice. Chenong smiled and said to Huang Shang, "If there is no migration in a newly expanded land, it will be unstable. But the Song dynasty is rich. Even if there is no land, they can still make a living. Who would be willing to leave their homeland? I even suggested to the government to capture all the wanderers and beggars. All the young and strong people are to be sent to the border of West Xia." Huang Shang said cautiously, "I'm afraid that West Xia will retaliate and disturb the border. It will be difficult to produce peacefully. Isn't it the duty of the Forbidden Martial Hall to protect the people and prevent West Xia's counterattack? The Duci Imperial Army will make West Xia unable to retaliate. The Imperial Court has already passed the 36 prohibitions. It is time to show off. The Ming cult alone is far from enough. Six Fan School has sent dozens of Wulin sects with blood debts and Lulin villages. We must show the Wulin the power of the Imperial Court." Chenong said coldly, "Chase after Fong La and eliminate these scum one by one." Chapter 61. I have fought for 3,000 miles, and I have fought against millions with my sword. After the intense feeling, there was only endless loneliness. On Tang Mountain, the grass and trees were green, but under the vast expanse of greenery, there was only the sound of birds chirping, which made the place feel desolate. Chin Ong stood halfway up the mountain, looking down at the vast sky and earth. It was a lonely shadow, especially desolate. As far as the eye could see, the vast Taihang Mountain was towering like an elder that had existed since ancient times. It was benevolent and dignified, silent and loyal. It had watched over the thousands of years and the joys and sorrows of the human world at the foot of the majestic Taihang Mountain. Chenong was a bit lost in thought. He deeply felt the loneliness. It was as if time had passed, and the calmness that settled everything, the bleakness of seeing through the world of mortals. He could not help but think, if thousands of years pass, I will be like Taihang, leisurely and indifferent, in the face of strong will and strong emotions. Even if it was sublimated, even if it was unforgettable, would it be able to fight against the merciless time? To experience all of this, to see the beauty turn into bones, to see the sea turn into mulberry fields, would he be able to maintain his original heart? The most merciless thing in the world was time. Time kills without a sound, without a trace, without blood. Often unknowingly, it can change a person. Looking back, He felt that the person of the past was somewhat strange and unrecognizable. Chen-ong laughed self-deprecatingly. He didn't know if pursuing that elusive goal would change him. He also didn't know if the scenery in front of him would be the scenery he liked. But to experience the world and sublimate the wonders of life was more meaningful than everything he had done before. He knew what he was worried about. His feelings were getting weaker and weaker, and his heart was getting more and more lonely. One day, there would be nothing in the world that could move him. This was partly because of the overclocking state, but more because of time. He had thought that his indifference was because he was heartless, but later he found out that it might also be because he had seen through it. The washing of time would bring Chen-ong closer and closer to the state of an immortal. He was on a mountain, far away from the world of mortals. Only the hot-blooded chivalrous in his bones could make him look like a human. Chen-ong shook his head. The blue light in his eyes faded away. He had accidentally touched the soul of Taihang, which almost made him lose himself in the ancient times. Human emotions could not stand the test of time. It was better not to do such dangerous things in the future. Breaking away from the influence of this Taoism, Chen-ong saw Huang Chong walking towards him. This scholar of the Dragon Diagram Pavilion, a Hanlin, had already lost a bit of the inexperience of a scholar and was becoming more and more like a grandmaster. Over the past few days, the Jianghu's trials had allowed this martial arts prodigy, an unpolished jade in the Jianghu, to have a corner of the brilliance of a fine jade. Commander-in-Chief, the leaders of the 18 strongholds of Taihang have been beheaded. Only the military advisor, the white-robed scholar, Wang Lin, has escaped. Should the martial prohibition hall pursue him? Are we going to return the women and the children they gave birth to from the stronghold to their original villages? There's no need for that. That would be forcing them to their deaths. Change those in the strongholds who have no blood debts and who have committed lesser crimes to imprisonment in Western Xia. Ask those women if they are willing to go with them. If they are willing, send them back to their families. If they are not, settle them where they are. Chen-ong stood with his hands clasped behind his back. Bring the orphans who have lost their parents back to the martial prohibition hall. Teach them martial arts and literature and train them according to the military system. Call them the Yulin Royal Guards and prepare them for the Dragon and Crouching Tiger Guards. Yes. Hearing this, Huang Chang's face relaxed imperceptibly. The days of killing had made him tired. No one liked to kill. Everyone had a heart of compassion. Fighting for a better treatment for these orphans also made him feel at ease. Commander-in-Chief, the 15 strongholds and sects with great resentment have been cleared. Below them are the people of the Jianghu who have blood debts, the local gangs, the Ocean Sand Gang, and the Third River Gang. Do you want the Dragon Stallion Guard to go ahead and clean up the Wang stronghold? The Dragon Stallion Guards at the Diagonal Dragon Ridge are already on standby. The cavalry of the Dragon Stallion Guard galloped like the wind. Other than the pursuit of Fong La, where Chen-ong personally led the troops to pull out the stubborn nails, the rest of the Dragon Stallion Guard split into small groups to attack their targets. Often, they would travel 100 li in a single day. With the speed of the wind, they were able to completely exterminate the sects on the Six Doors blacklist in a few short days. Often, it would take a few days for the local powers to vaguely receive some news. Before the entire Jianghu could react, the entire Jianghu would be cleared out. This is not something we should worry about. Have the Six Doors arrest warrant. The local authorities have already received the 36 martial prohibition decrees. They will naturally suppress them. If they dare to resist the authorities, that will be the time for us to act, Chen-ong said indifferently. He suddenly smiled. Right now, the most important thing is to clearly investigate the shocking case of Kai Darren's death by the beggar sect's dragon subduing Palm. Now that the court is boiling with resentment, the beggar sect must be severely punished. Huang Chong was slightly taken aback. He silently lowered his head. He had clearly heard who had asked the official, who is the person they want to kill the most, and who had killed Kai Jing with such a powerful palm strike. He sighed deeply. The beggar sect's master, Qiao Feng, was on the battlefield of the Liao and Song dynasties. Countless soldiers can prove it. The beggar sect has hundreds of thousands of members, but there is no concrete evidence. I'm afraid they won't accept it. Evidence? Does the court need evidence? Chenong looked at him with a faint smile. In this world, besides the beggar sect, is there any other sect that knows the dragon subduing palm? If it wasn't the beggar sect, then who did it? As for Qiao Feng, is there no one else who knows the dragon subduing palm? I think even the elders of the beggar sect could have done it. As he said this, there was not the slightest bit of embarrassment on his face. It was as if the beggar sect had really killed someone. But the beggar sect members, Huang Chang was still hesitating. The beggar sect members, hundreds of thousands of beggar sect members, this is their evidence. Chenong looked at him and said with a smile, hundreds of thousands of people who don't work in production. They beg and extort money for a living. They can't pay taxes to the Song dynasty. Such a large underground gang has long been a thorn in the hearts of the ministers in the court. As for evidence, there's no need. We are the officials. Our words are evidence. If the beggar sect does not give us an explanation, then it will be seeking death. The Song dynasty will not let this go. Huang Shang took a deep breath and sighed, but Qiao Feng fought for the country and the people against the Liao and the Xia. His meritorious service was unparalleled. Many members of the beggar clan also died defending the country. I'm afraid this kind of loyalty is disappointing. The beggar sect has two factions. Who are our friends and who are our enemies? We need to be clear. The Dirty Clothes faction is made up of people of the lower class. They have a lot of people, but most of them are poor people looking for food. The beggar sect has hundreds of thousands of members, and most of them are like this. They join the beggar sect to find someone to rely on to survive. These people are the friends of the court because the court can also be their support. Qiao Feng and the elders of the beggar sect are like this. They are loyal to the country and can be the protectors of the Song dynasty. They are suitable for immigration. But the Clean Clothes faction is different. They have been practicing martial arts for generations and are the main force of the beggar sect. Usually, there are local tyrants who use the beggar sect as a pivot to protect themselves. Although they are called the beggar sect, they are actually local tyrants. If they control the poor people of the beggar sect, there will be a big problem for the court. Therefore, the court supports the Dirty Clothes faction to fight against them. Huang Chang finally understood. So this time, they're suppressing the Clean Clothes faction and moving the Dirty Clothes faction to Western Xia. At the same time, they're expelling the influence of the Clean Clothes faction. Chenong clasped his hands behind his back and turned around. Without looking back, he walked toward the stronghold. A dozen horses were tied there, leisurely gnawing at the grass on the ground. Chenong's voice came from behind him. We're going to the beggar sect assembly. That is a grand event of the martial world. All sorts of people were coming. The Clean Clothes faction, the Dirty Clothes faction, a group of half-baked rebels, Western Xia's first-class hall, the heir of Dali, and the plot that had provoked the Liao Song several decades ago to overthrow the Great Song. The victims and the persecutors, the heroes and traitors, the righteousness of the country and the loyalty of brothers. Several dozen red-clothed knights followed behind Chenong. As Chenong led his horse, he glanced at Huang Chang. The dragon stallion guard behind him was already ready to depart. The procession rode off without so much as a glance back, leaving behind only the local officials to deal with the aftermath. Huang Chang watched as the group of people turned into a cloud of dust. In just a few breaths, all that was left was a faint cloud of dust. Only Chun Ang's low voice came from the distance, echoing in the air. The green robe is upright, treading the dangerous peak. The jade wall shines brightly under the moonlight. The fragrance of the swift horse is faint. The tall man on the precipice is far away. The light of each step is marked. Which family's son is whose courtyard? There is no regret. The roar of the tiger and the cry of the dragon, changing the nest of the swan and the phoenix. The sword energy rises in the air like green smoke. Always infatuated, from now on drunk, listening to the fragrance in the waterside pavilion, giving pointers to the play of heroes. Drinking 1,000 cups of wine in a play, the affairs of a man. In the apricot forest, discussing the friendship of a lifetime. Huang Chang stood solemnly for a moment. then mounted his horse and chased after them. Chapter 62. Chunong brought along a few dozen riders, traveling swiftly and lightly all the way south. After a few days, they had already arrived within the borders of Suzhou. Even though they stopped at relay stations along the way, the continuous days of traveling had already caused everyone to be exhausted, and they had no choice but to find another place to rest. Wuxi was bustling with people. The wind was warm, and the people were dressed like officials, so no one dared to provoke them. They heard about the famous building of pines and cranes, which was famous in Wuxi. They immediately led their horses there. Sure enough, not far from them, they could smell caramel, soy sauce, and cooked meat. This group of people were travel-worn. With one glance, it was obvious that they were guests from afar. The waiter was very perceptive. Seeing Chun Ang's embroidered official robe, he arranged a good private room for him and served a dozen or so meat dishes. He led the red-robed knights to the other side and sat down, leaving the best room for Chenong, Huangchang, and a group of palace guards. The two imperial bodyguards had suffered greatly these past few days. They had been confident in their status and martial arts, but none of the other members of the stalwart Dragon Guard had surpassed them. Chun Ang's actions had shocked them, and they felt that the opponent's martial arts had reached an inconceivable level. They no longer dared to be negligent. Now that things had calmed down, the two quickly came forward and said, "Governor's martial arts are outstanding. You have already flattened the Wulin world of the Central Plains. The dozens of Lulin strongholds have been old bandits for many years and have been a threat to Jianghu for a long time. Now that Governor's horse has arrived, the golden cities and hot ponds have been turned into ashes, shaking the Wulin world for thousands of miles." Chenong listened to their flattery, but he didn't show any happiness on his face. The two were so anxious that they became dizzy. As imperial bodyguards, their martial arts hadn't improved a bit, but they had learned to be slippery. In a moment of anxiety, they dared to say anything. One of the imperial bodyguards whispered, "The Beggar Clan is the #1 clan in the world. Their experts are as many as the clouds, and their eyes and ears are all over the world. In the Central Plains, the governor has imposed a ban on martial arts. Although right now the Beggar Clan is still a big force, the funny thing is that they still don't know that when the big tree is about to fall, when the governor's troops and horses arrive, the wolf will run and the boar will scatter. That will be their best ending." Chenong sighed inwardly. This officialdom was really a place to raise useless people. When these two were in Jianghu, they still had some heroic spirit, but now they were no different from villains in danger. Compared to Murong Fu's 4 great generals, they were incomparable. Compared to the beggar sect and the heroes of the martial arts world, they were not worth mentioning. He slowly tasted the food on the table, and only after a long time did he put down his chopsticks. Facing the two men who were trying their best to flatter him and leak military intelligence, he said in a low voice, "The Beggar Clan has eyes and ears all over the world. By saying that, have you ever considered the feelings of the Beggar Clan brothers? The imperial court sent us here to commend the Beggar Clan's loyalty and justice, at the same time to promote the harmonious development of the Beggar Clan. Although we still have to investigate the Beggar Clan's suspected assassination of Kai Darren, we believe that the Beggar Clan has been deceived by a small group of scum. By saying that, you really don't consider the feelings of the Beggar Clan brothers next door at all." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone stood up and looked at the curtain. Suddenly, there was a sound of something crashing behind them. Everyone turned their heads in surprise. Only Huangchang and Chun Ong were smiling as they looked at where they stood. They saw a black shadow jump out from the curtain and touch the windowsill. Then, like a sharp arrow, it shot out of the window. The black shadow snatched the horses they had tied in the courtyard and galloped out of the city. When the riders in red heard the noise, they all ran over. The faces of the two imperial bodyguards changed. They trembled and said, "Commander-in-Chief, quickly chase after him. There's no hurry. Let's settle the bill first," Chenong said with a smile. When the two heard this, their vision darkened. This building of pines and cranes was obviously a business for the Beggar Clan to gather information, but Chun Ong still wanted to settle the bill. "We are officials of the imperial court. When we go out, we have to maintain the image of the imperial court. We can't do something like dine and dash. You must bear this in mind. Chenong leisurely explained a lot of things to them. Under their burning gazes, he leisurely followed the official road. The beggar clan disciple was extremely desperate. Unexpectedly, he didn't follow the official road, but took a small path instead. Chenong and the others had changed their horses, so they were tired from chasing him. Unexpectedly, they could only catch him outside the apricot forest. That person's breathing was rapid and unstable because Chun Ang's voice had broken his turtle breathing art in the building of pines and cranes. Now that he had forced himself to focus and run for several li, he could no longer hold on. Just as he reached Xiao Feng, he suddenly collapsed. Chun Ong leisurely stood on a high hill, looking at the mess. The beggar clan had been divided into two groups, and they were facing each other. Several Jianghu elders stood solemnly on the side. The atmosphere was extremely strange. Chun Ong saw Xiao Feng's blood-stained linen robe. He looked majestic and heroic. He couldn't help but secretly praise him. Good man, a great hero. Xiao Feng cupped his fists toward Chun Ong and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you? Why have you come to our beggar clan's gathering place?" Everyone looked at him, their eyes filled with surprise. Only Duan Yu, a hothead, greeted Chun Ong with a smile. Chun Ong smiled and said, "I am Chun Ong, the commander-in-chief of the Imperial Guards of the Great Song Su Hall. Greetings, clan leader Xiao." The Jianghu warriors present had just heard of his name and were in an uproar. The beggar clan people were even more surprised. They thought, is the Imperial Court really going to attack the beggar clan? The Wulin people had mixed feelings about the Imperial Court. On the one hand, they were secretly opposed to the Imperial Court. On the other hand, they were loyal to the Emperor and the country. They could not bear the shackles of the Imperial Court, but they were loyal. At this time, Chun Ong appeared as the commander-in-chief of the Imperial Court and interfered in Jianghu affairs. This was something that had never happened before. For a moment, half of the people present were at a loss. They didn't know how they should face Chun Ong. The beggar clan and the Imperial Court had always cooperated. Although their relationship was not close, they were not hostile. Xiao Feng said, "Since you are a brother of the Imperial Guards, why don't you sit down? Today, the warriors of the Wulin world will bear witness to my identity. My resignation from the beggar clan's clan leader position should be witnessed by the Imperial Court." He turned around to face the beggar clan people and laughed. "I am a good friend of the beggar clan brothers. We drank strong wine and ate dog meat to fight against the Liao dynasty. I, Xiao Feng, am deeply grateful that you are willing to recognize me as your brother. Now that my identity is unknown, I cannot assume the beggar clan leader position no matter what. I only hope that after I, Xiao Feng, leave, you can get rid of the estrangement between us. The beggar clan is the #1 clan in Jianghu. Its prestige is illustrious. Who in the Wulin world does not respect it? The brothers of the beggar clan should be as close as a family. We must not let outsiders laugh at us." His words were spoken with great sincerity. The crowd of beggar clan members originally valued Yi Qi above all else, but listening to him, they all felt ashamed. Xiao Feng was magnanimous. Although he had encountered a great change, he did not show any resentment or anger on his face. Before he left, he was still thinking about the beggar clan. He respectfully handed the dog-beating stick to Chuan Gong Zhonglao. Just like that, he turned around and left. The crowd saw that even though he had encountered such a great change, not only he did not look desolate, he looked unyielding. His back was as straight as a pencil. Looking at his robe, soaked with blood, they could not help but feel grief. Immediately someone shouted, "Bangzhu, don't go. The beggar clan depends on you to manage the situation. Bangzhu, come back quickly." Chun Ong could not help shaking his head and sighing. He said, "Since Xiao Daxia has resigned from the beggar clan's Bangzhu position, I would like to ask all of you to quickly come up with a plan." The Ministry of Revenue's Minister Kai Jing, Kai Darren, was hacked to death in his home with a dragon-subduing palm. The beggar clan must give the Imperial Court an explanation for this matter. As soon as he said that, all the beggar clan disciples present glared at him. Only Su Zhonglao hesitated for a moment and then said in a loud and clear voice, you are right. Our clan cannot be without a leader for a single day. After Xiao Feng has passed away, the clan's important matter needs someone to make the decision. This is an urgent matter that cannot be delayed. In any case, our innocence will be cleared. Chen Ong continued, take your time to choose the Bangju position. No matter who it is, he or she must come with me to the 6th fan school to give us an explanation. His words were like pouring oil on the fire. Among the people present, who did not regard going to the 6th fan school as a great humiliation, seeing him being humiliated like this, someone was not convinced and said, what right does the imperial court have to arrest our Bangju? It's not that we want to resist the arrest of your Bangju. It's just that Lord Kai is dead. You should give an explanation to the 6th fan school and ask your Bangju to make an exception. Don't tell me that a high-ranking official of the imperial court has died in vain. Chenong explained. You want to avenge Deputy Bangju Ma, but we also want to arrest the murderer who killed Lord Kai. You have to understand the imperial court. Hearing this, the crowd felt that he was right. However, they would never hand over their Bangju. Immediately, Su Zhonglao hesitated and said, our Bangju hasn't been decided yet. We can only ask for your understanding. I don't care. It's just that you can't afford to wait in the imperial court. Chen Ong said leisurely. I won't make things difficult for you. You just have to bring the murderer to the 6th fan school within 3 months. Elder Su hesitated and said, our Bangju is in chaos. I'm afraid that 3 months is not enough. Chun Ong said with a cold smile, Elder Su, are you trying to bargain with me? Elder Su said in fear, I don't dare. Seeing his servile manner, the Beggar Clan disciples thought of Xiao Feng's heroic and generous attitude and felt that it was not worth it. Chun Ong was behaving like an official of the imperial court. Although he wasn't condescending, he was still overbearing. However, he had angered someone. Someone took a step forward and waved his folding fan, saying, That's not true. This dragon-subduing palm, you can practice it. I can also practice it. There's no way to explain it. Look at my move. Isn't it the dragon-subduing palm? It turned out to be Bao Batong. Because of the Morong family's underworld forces, he had been uprooted by Chun Ong and was in a terrible situation. Because of this, he was delayed. Seeing Chun Ang's official robes, he couldn't help but mock him. Bao Batong laughed loudly and suddenly leaped forward. He exerted all his strength and struck the apricot tree with his palms, causing the surrounding trees to tremble. Leaves rustled and fell. 8 layers of the tree's branches and leaves fell. His palm strength was really strong. Seeing this, Chun Ong burst into laughter. Bao Batong was puzzled. He said mockingly, Could it be that my palm is scratcher itch? Why are you laughing? I'm laughing because I finally have a way to close the case. Chen Ong laughed coldly. So it's the Morong family's dead leftover. Since you said you know the dragon-subduing palm, then what are you waiting for? The murderer is you. Chapter 63. The 2 Morong family warriors, Ah Zhu, Ah Bai, and Wang Yuyin, were so anxious that their faces turned red. Even though the Morong family was wealthy, they could not afford to offend the imperial court, even though they secretly wanted to restore their country. On the surface, they kept a respectful distance from the imperial court and did not dare to offend them. Otherwise, under the siege of the army, they would not be able to restore their country. They would become stray dogs and face the danger of having their families destroyed. Bao Batong would never have thought that he would provoke such a muddle-headed official like Chen Ong, who would distort the truth. It seemed that Chen Ong was openly framing him, with the intention of exterminating his entire family. Master Zhuang put his palms together and said righteously, Benefactor, you are exaggerating. Even though Benefactor Bao's palm power is strong, it cannot be compared to the Beggar Clan's dragon subduing divine palm. Please reconsider. Then, Master, do you mean that it was the Beggar Clan who did it? Chen Ong asked with a smile. Master Zhuang hurriedly explained, I didn't mean it that way. The people of the Beggar Clan understand the righteousness of their country and are patriotic heroes. They have sacrificed their lives for the great song, shed their blood, and fought for meritorious services. They would never do such a thing. That's right. The Beggar Clan would never do such a thing. Someone has to take responsibility. I think this Xianbei bastard has a rebellious streak in his brain. He is not a good person. Since he served the Empress of Later Yin as his master, he must have a plan to restore his country. Killing him is not a bad thing. Chen Ong said righteously. This way, I can answer to the imperial court, and the beggar clan's loyalty will be preserved. Isn't that great? Most of the beggar clan people did not have a good impression of Xianbei, Hu Zhong. Plus, they hated Murong Fu for causing Qiao Feng to resign from the Bangzhou position. Among them, more than half suspected that Murong Fu had killed Ma Deyuan. Seeing the Murong family was helping them to block the calamity, half of them showed a happy expression. Only the two elders who were loyal to Qiao Feng, Chuan Gong and Law Enforcer, were not willing. Chuan Gong elder said, "This matter is not only related to the imperial court, but also the beggar clan. The beggar clan is willing to catch the culprit and seek justice for official Kai. At the same time, we want to find out who secretly learned the dragon subduing divine palm." He saw that some of the beggars showed disapproval and shouted, "The beggar clan is 1 and 2. How can we let others help us?" When Chief Qiao was alive, he suffered a lot and went through many trials. Have you ever seen him frown? The beggar clan will not deceive the world. Today, that person framed us. We have Murong family to block the disaster. Tomorrow, he will use the same trick again. Who will come? His words were filled with awe-inspiring righteousness. They were very reasonable. When the crowd of beggars heard this, even if they were dissatisfied with Murong family, they forced themselves to suppress it. Only Su Zhonglao, Quan Guanqing, and the others were submissive. Elder Su tried his best to smooth things over. Quan Guanqing bluntly said, "What official said is right. The Murong family's Big Dipper shift of the stars is incomparably marvelous. They were able to kill Wulin people with their unique skill. Obviously, they are proficient in hundreds of martial arts. If someone used this skill to commit a crime, they're the most likely suspects." Chenong waved his hand and said with a smile, "I am just giving you a suggestion. The Murong family has long violated the imperial court's law. Their treason and heresy. This time I am here partly because of the Murong family's attempt to restore their country. Their property is about to be confiscated and exterminated. I thought one more crime wouldn't matter. But since you're not willing, I am happy to be free." The beggar clan had never seen such an honest official who could speak so confidently about framing others. For a moment, they were speechless. Many of them thought that the way Chun Ong handled things was really interesting. On the other side, Wang Yuyin and the others' faces turned pale. "You are talking nonsense," she said in fear. "Cousin would not do such a thing." Chun Ong laughed coldly. "Don't you know whether he would do such a thing or not?" Wang Yuyin recalled her cousin's great cause and his various ambitions. For a moment, she was speechless. Everyone at the scene was experienced in Jianghu. They were very smart. Seeing the expression on her face, they believed her a little. Master Zhiguang put his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. In an instant, the few people from the Murong clan were vaguely excluded. Only the silly Duan Yu was still anxiously surrounding Wang Yuyin. Bao Budong said anxiously, "You dog official, your mouth stinks. Your mouth is full of nonsense. With your ability to distort the truth, how can I not say anything? You don't have a single bit of evidence. You're just speaking empty words. There's no proof on paper. You can say whatever you want, but my Murong family will never dare to admit it." "Huh?" Chenong laughed out loud. "Does the imperial court still need evidence to handle matters?" "Naive," Chun Ong said in a heavy tone. When the crowd heard this, they didn't know what to say. They didn't have any standpoint, nor did they need to speak up for the Murong family. However, Chun Ang's attitude of "I am the law is the law" made them frown. Only Duan Yu was left. Seeing that Wang Yiyin was on the verge of tears, he stepped forward with a pained expression on his face and said, "Brother, you're wrong. You need evidence, and you can't do things without evidence." Everyone looked at his pretty boy face and laughed secretly. They were ready to see him make a fool of himself. But Chenong suddenly changed his expression and said gently, "Since it is the Crown Prince's request, of course we need evidence." Everyone was shocked. They did not understand why Chun Ang's attitude changed so much. Just now, he was acting like a high-ranking official. Why did he suddenly become so friendly to that kid? Duan Yu was also surprised. You know my identity? Dali and the Song dynasty are friendly neighbors. Little brother, you are the crown prince of Dali. You are an honored guest of our country. We need evidence. We can't let our country be surprised. Chenong said gently. Everyone was depressed. Some of the beggar's sect disciples were angry. They were cursing in their hearts. Our country is surprised. You are so servile. You are really the imperial court. You are not afraid of the public's anger. You're just saying that our country is surprised, and you want evidence? Chenong tilted his head and saw Huang Chang's look of approval. He could not help but feel funny, but he still had to pretend to be a dog of the imperial court. He gestured to Huang Chang, and Huang Chang shook out a pile of random things from behind him. Bao Budong saw it, and his face finally broke. He looked at the small flag and symbol on the ground in fear. Yunzhou's Qin village, 18 villages of Taihang, 1 village. Take a look. What is missing? Chunong said with a smile. Are you surprised that the Yin flag was exposed? Your Murong family recruited people from the underworld and issued the black Yin flag. Those who received it will follow the Murong family's orders. Chunong snorted coldly. I have witnesses and material evidence here. I won't allow you to quibble. Everyone looked at the ground. Indeed, there were weapons and flags with the Yin symbol on them. They were all made of black satin. They were beautiful and glowed. Some people with sharp eyes recognized them. They were the special satin of the Murong family's Suzhou workshop. It was difficult for outsiders to imitate them. Bao Budong's head was dripping with cold sweat. He forced himself to say, No. Our Murong family is a business. You can buy this cloth. You can also buy it. How can we use it as evidence? Everyone had already believed 80% of his words. So how could they allow him to quibble? Elder Wu was the most unyielding. He was grateful for Qiao Feng's great kindness and respected his character. He was extremely angry at the Murong family for causing Qiao Feng to leave. So he sternly shouted, Xianbei Hu, the evidence is conclusive. How can you quibble? Chenong said with a smile. I have evidence here. Everyone was shocked. What evidence? Chenong coldly uttered 4 words. Return the water pavilion. These words were like thunder that hit the Murong family members. Wang Yin's face turned pale. Chenong asked Master Zhiguang coldly. You once said that the Liao people wanted to steal the Shaolin Temple's sutra depository. This is a matter that threatens the foundation of the Song dynasty. If someone stole all the secret manuals of the martial arts world, wouldn't that mean they were up to no good? Master Zhiguang chanted, Sin, it's all sin. What a sin. We'll talk about your matter later. The Murong family's water pavilion has all the martial arts secret manuals of all the sects in the world. How do they get them? Where are they up to? Isn't this a piece of evidence? When the people present heard that their own martial arts had been leaked, how could they not be filled with righteous indignation? They shouted in unison, Of course. Stealing other people's martial arts is the most despicable thing. He really is a person with evil intentions. Bao Budong saw the beggar clan and martial arts people shouting in unison. He knew that the situation was hopeless. He carefully protected Wang Yuyan, Ah Zhu, and Ah Bai and retreated. Feng Polio also stood in front of them to protect them. Unexpectedly, the angry beggar clan disciples surrounded them. Even though Duan Yu was anxious, he could not do anything. I have a third piece of evidence here, Chenong said loudly. When he saw everyone looking at him, he smiled and looked back at Master Zhuang. This is a conspiracy that has been going on for decades. You found out about the Murong family's dirty deeds 10 years ago, right, Master? Outside Yinmen Pass, who is the accomplice? Under the vengeful spirits. Have you been sleeping well these few years? Master Zhiguang's face was pale. He lowered his eyes and said, I have not slept for decades. Every time I close my eyes, I think of that sin. I only wish to use my broken body to resolve this evil fate. Chapter 64. Hearing his words, the crowd of beggars looked at each other. They did not know if this was a slip of the tongue or if it was intentional. Ever since Chun Ong appeared, he had been too unpredictable. His temper was unpredictable and no one knew what he was like. Shaolin was the #1 sect in the Wulin world and had always been the pillar of Jianghu. Chun Ang's words undoubtedly disgraced Shaolin and humiliated its reputation. However, he was unpredictable and was an official of the imperial court. No one knew if he said it unintentionally or if he was mocking him. They could only look at Master Zhiguang. Master Zhiguang was silent for a while and sighed. This evil was caused by us. What does it have to do with Shaolin? A monk does not lie. Big monk, did you eat your own face? Chen Ong laughed coldly. Don't think that I am that stupid. They don't know and I don't know. The tragedy outside Yamen Pass was caused by the Xianbei rebels colluding with the scum of Wulin to create a conflict between Liao and Song. They wanted to start a war between the two countries and restore the country. The Forbidden Martial Hall has been investigating this for many years. When the beggar clan members heard him insult Master Zhiguang, they all looked indignant. When they heard the Xianbei rebels colluding with the scum of Wulin, they were all shocked. Wu Zhonglao looked at the Murong clan members who were on high alert and said, "Could it be that the leader is Murong Bo from Swallow Dock who died long ago?" Reverend Jiguang, Zhao Qiansun, Elder Tan, and Elder Ten all had a strange expression on their faces. They seemed to be ashamed, fearful, and magnanimous. Dan Zheng snorted angrily. He brandished his saber and charged towards Shenong. He shouted sternly, "You dog official, how can you distort the truth like this?" His saber skills were swift and fierce. One slash was followed by a grab. The crowd saw his agile movements and secretly cheered. At the same time, they were worried for him. Why is Hero Dan so impulsive? He has a family and a career. If he offends an official of the imperial court, won't he be in trouble? That dog official can't tell right from wrong. How hateful. To his surprise, Chenong only shook his hand casually and grabbed Dan Zheng's neck. He shook him twice, and a gush of energy shook Dan Zheng's muscles and bones. Chenong landed on the ground and stepped on Dan Zheng's head. The Iron Mask Judge Dan Zheng was a famous figure in the Chinese world of martial arts, and no one in the area dared to say that they could defeat him. Even Zhao Qiansun was almost on par with him. But now, he was like a child in Chun Ang's hands, unable to fight back at all. He was easily trampled on and humiliated, and all the onlookers were dumbfounded. Could this person be a demon? Zhao Qiansun shrieked and shrank back, his face filled with fear. Granny Tin knew that he was recalling a figure that resembled both a god and a devil, so she wanted to go up and comfort him. Chun Ang's martial arts shocked everyone present. How could Master Tin dare to let her leave his side? He quickly pulled her back. The people from the beggar clan could not react in time and hesitated at the side. They only had one thought in their mind. This official's martial arts is so powerful. The imperial court actually has such a martial arts expert. Master Zhiguang could not help but say, "Governor Chun, Dan Zheng is just anxious. Let's talk nicely, don't harm his life. He is an important suspect. Not only will I not harm him, but I will also try my best to protect his life." Chenong said indifferently, "Master Zhiguang, don't treat me as a fool. Let me ask you, is the leader the abbot of Shaolin Temple, Xian Ci?" Master Zhiguang put his palms together. His expression was unpredictable, and his body faintly emitted a resolute aura. "You want to commit suicide? Think about Dan Zheng first." Chenong stepped on Dan Zheng's head, forcing him to shout. Master Zhiguang could not bear it, so he turned his head and said in a deep voice, "Amit Ba, almsgiver, please let Hero Dan go. I am willing to do it for him." "Hero? Is he worthy?" Chun Ong sneered. "If you still refuse to say, then I will tell everyone. The Liao people are plotting to take over the Shaolin Sutra depository. No matter how well you put it, or how charming the decorations are, it is still a private matter of Shaolin Temple. The so-called Shaolin consummate skills were learned by the Liao people, and the Song dynasty is in danger of being annihilated is just to give yourself some face. If this is the case, Shaolin will spread martial arts in the Song dynasty and forbid the soldiers from learning Shaolin consummate skills. Won't they be able to destroy Liao and Xia? If this is the case, if Shaolin does not hand over the martial arts, it will be treason. As martial arts practitioners, who doesn't know that the more profound the martial arts, the harder it is to improve? Without the teachings of Shaolin, how many of the so-called consummate skills can we master? Your Shaolin is talented and diligent. How many of the 72 consummate skills can you master? The so-called Sutra Depository has nothing to do with the Song dynasty. Chun Ong sneered. This is originally a matter of Shaolin Temple. Why do you have to involve the life and death of the country? Do you think you are worthy of the surname Zhao? Master Zhiguang and those who experienced the past all looked gloomy. Although the beggar clan members were angry at Chun Ang's sarcastic tone, they thought carefully and felt that what he said made sense. A bold person whispered, "This is indeed a matter of Jianghu. The Song dynasty's martial arts world is more prosperous than the Liao people's, but the Song dynasty can only barely survive under the Liao people's attack. It shows that martial arts has nothing to do with the strength of the country." Zhao Qiansun shrieked, "We are working for the country. Is it your turn to come here and mock us?" His voice was sorrowful, and there was a hint of injustice. Anyone with good intentions would not be able to remain calm after being accused. Chenong also sympathized with them. It was a pity that these people were too stupid. They often did bad things with good intentions. It was best to get rid of them as soon as possible. Work for the country? Who can prove it? Chenong said with a black face. I know that there is a traitor among you. Murong family is the royal family of the Yin dynasty. They are Xinbei people. You worked with him to provoke the war between the Liao and the Song dynasty. You wanted to overturn the country and make the two countries bleed. You should know that most of the Liao people are Han people. Is it wrong to say that you are scum of Jianghu? You're making irresponsible remarks. Zhao Qinsuan's face was full of tears. He trembled and staggered. He said angrily, "This is not true. We did not do anything wrong. We were not used by others." He suddenly grabbed Master Zhiguang's collar and asked sternly, "Tell me, did Bo lie to us?" Master Zhiguang lowered his head dejectedly and did not dare to look at him. Zhao Qinsun laughed out loud. His voice was extremely mournful. Every night when it was quiet, he would always think of the massacre outside the Yemen Pass. His heart was filled with fear and regret. The only belief that supported him was the righteousness of serving the country and the people. Now that his belief was on the verge of collapse, he actually went crazy. You did not do anything wrong. You were just stupid and cheated by others. Even the government did not pursue the fault of an idiot. What are you blaming yourself for? Chun Ang's figure flickered, and he pointed a finger at Zhao Qinsuan's body, causing him to collapse and fall into Granny Tan's arms. Granny Tan was exasperated and helpless, and could only shake her head and sigh. The 5 Dan brothers hurriedly helped Dan Zheng up. When they saw that his limbs were weak and he couldn't even stand up, they stretched out their hands to help him up. Only then did they realize that Chun Ong had dislocated all the joints in his body. This level of martial arts was truly terrifying, not to mention the fact that he had easily defeated Zhao Qiansun. Everyone present felt a deep fear towards Chun Ong. The ones who are really at fault are those despicable people who say one thing in front of others and another behind others' backs. For example, the leader who only has a title and no one knows his name. Chun Ong looked at Ji Guang and smiled. At this moment, everyone had guessed the origin of the leader. Other than Shaolin monk Xianci, who else would have such a stance to fight for Shaolin Temple? Immediately, some people showed dissatisfaction. A few beggar clan disciples even laughed mockingly. I have a clear conscience. Monk Xianci also has a clear conscience. Ji Guang put his palms together and said loudly, If you have a clear conscience, why did you use words to force Qiao Feng? What will you do? Is this the so-called moral coercion? If you don't feel that you have done anything wrong, why do you use all kinds of words to defend yourself? To say that you are sorry and that you are wrong. Is it really that difficult? You are a monk. Chenong sneered. His words made the beggar sect disciples feel carefree, and their blood was boiling. Especially the low-level disciples, who had eaten wine and eaten meat with Qiao Feng. They deeply admired his spirit of brotherhood. They wholeheartedly accepted Qiao Feng and admired him endlessly. They all looked at Master Ji Guang with mocking eyes, telling him to close his eyes and shake his head. You are a monk, yet you want to fall to the ground when talking about babies. You have compassion for them. Not only did you not reflect on yourself, but you also feel that you are too soft-hearted. It can be seen that you have not the slightest bit of repentance in the past 10 years. Your compassion is all bullshit. That Liao man was killed by you, and yet he was still willing to let you off the hook. It can be seen that you, a monk, are all talk and not in your heart. Chen Ong sighed. Tell me, have you had any repentance in the past few years? If you had the intention, you should have resolved the enmity between the two generations. But you are so secretive and hesitant, refusing to say the name of the leader. Your desire for fame and wealth is really harmful. Master Ji Guang meditated on the ground, lowered his head, and closed his eyes, not daring to say anything. I suspect that you are colluding with the Moron clan. Because of this, you monks do not seek to repay the debt of blood with your life after committing murder. Instead, you try to cover up the evil in many ways. If you say that you did not do it on purpose, who would believe you? Chenong shook his head. Master Ji Guang saw that the beggar clan members were glaring at him. He did not have the strength to explain. I thought that Mr. Moron was also deceived by others. He is already dead. A person's death is like an extinguished lamp. Why bother about what happened after he died? Who said that Moron Bo is dead? Isn't he living well in the back mountain of Shaolin? Once Chenong said this, the crowd was in an uproar. Some of the beggar clan members had already picked up a dog-beating stick and was about to hit Ji Guang's head. Master Ji Guang raised his head in shock and asked, Is this true? Wait until next month. When I interrogate Shaolin, you can come and take a look. During this time, don't commit suicide to escape punishment. Chenong said, Moreover, you're not merciful to the victim, but you are merciful to a criminal who died. You are not ashamed to the orphan, but you are covering up for the person who made you commit such a grave mistake. Not only did you not forgive and accept the cause and effect, you even have the intention to persecute him. You are indeed an enlightened monk. He sighed deeply, showing the elegance of a best actor. People like Xian Ci pretend to be benevolent and righteous. It is hard to distinguish whether he is loyal or treacherous. As the saying goes, great loyalty is like treachery. Benevolence is like hypocrisy. Of course, the opposite is also possible. I don't know whether you are sincere or not, and who is in cahoots with Moron Bo. I can only treat everyone equally and investigate everything. Master Zhiguang said quietly, I was wrong. If this is the truth, please clear my name. Chief Chiao, I have wronged him. I am willing to use the rest of my life to pray for his parents. I will definitely attend the Shaolin meeting and give Chief Chiao an explanation. The beggar clan's impression of Chun Ong suddenly changed. Originally, they were still indignant and felt that the imperial court had insulted their seniors in the martial arts world. Now, they actually felt that even though Master Zhiguang was pitiful and lamentable, his conduct was not honorable. On the contrary, Chenong, even though he was overbearing, his words were reasonable and could be said to be impartial in enforcing the law. Wu Zhonglao cupped his fists and said, Thank you for speaking up for our chief. At the Shaolin meeting, our beggar clan will not fall behind. We will definitely clear Chief Chiao's name. Regarding Deputy Chief Ma's matter, needless to say, it must be Murong Bo's doing, Chen Ong said righteously. Other than him, who else is so clear about Chief Chiao's background? Who else has the miraculous skill of changing the stars? Here, he has the motive and all the conditions. Moreover, he is a Shinbei who. He must have the intention to destroy our great song and specially came to sow discord. Elder Wu and the beggar clan disciples suddenly understood and said fiercely, That's right, that's right. They looked at the Morong clan's eyes fiercely with an indescribable hatred. They firmly believed in this. The entire beggar clan was filled with anger. They could not wait to kill their way to Swallow Dock, to clear Qiao Feng's name, and avenge Ma Deyuan. Elder Su saw that the situation was not good, so he went with the flow and said, I have wronged Chief Chiao. Only Kong Min and Quan Guanqing, who were at the side, seemed to have something to say. Bai Shijing stared at her fiercely, his eyes filled with the determination to fight to the death. Kong Min knew that if she dared to pour dirty water on Xiao Feng, Bai Shijing would probably kill her and then commit suicide. She quickly shut her mouth. Chapter 65. In Chun Ang's hands, Quan Guanqing was as weak as a 3-year-old child. His bones and muscles were easily shaken off. He was crushed into a ball and thrown to the back to be locked up by the knights. The crowd of beggars did not know why Chenong was making things difficult for them. Some of them could not bear to see Quan Guanqing splitting the beggar clan, so for a moment nobody tried to stop him. Only Elder Su stammered and said, "Darren, please listen to me." Quan Guanqing was also deceived by others. His voice had not died away when someone next to him said in a sinister voice, "The beggar clan's group of beggars agreed to meet at Mount Hui, but they did not show up. Turns out they're hiding here sneakily. Hey, what cowards." It was only then that the beggar clan suddenly remembered that they still had an agreement with the Western Xia's first-class hall at Mount Hui, but they had already sent Xiefu Duozhu of the Great Righteousness Division to change the date. They had just suffered a great change. How could they still have the mood to meddle with the Western Xia people? Bai Shijing took a step forward and said in a deep voice, "We have important matters to attend to. We don't have time to deal with you clowns. The date has been changed. What's there to talk about?" His voice had not died away when suddenly a man flew out from behind the apricot tree and fell straight to the ground. That man's chest was a pool of blood. His throat had been slit. It was Xiefu Duozhu, who had gone to change the date. By this time, he was already dead. The beggar clan people were enraged. Jiang Duozhu sternly cursed, "Xiago, you dare to take our family's brother's life. Our two countries are at war, and we do not kill the envoy. You have gone too far. Brothers, kill this Xiago." "Ha ha ha." The sinister voice laughed and said, "This man's manner is arrogant. His words are rude. He did not kneel down when he saw our general. How can we let him live?" While pacifying the anxious and angry beggar clan people, Elder Su shouted in a deep voice, "You sneaky lowly person who dares to boast here." The beggar clan people saw that although his words were righteous, he did not say anything about avenging his brother. They felt very wronged and could not help but miss Xiao Feng even more. The man laughed loudly and said, "Who is sneakily hiding in the apricot forest?" Suddenly, he heard the sound of a bugle horn blowing from afar. Then, he faintly heard the sound of a large group of horses' hooves coming from a few miles away. Dozens of horsemen surrounded the flags of Western Xia and Hao Lian as they galloped into the forest. 8 Western Xia warriors with bulging temples surrounded a horse as they slowly entered the apricot forest. The man on the horse was dressed in a nondescript red brocade robe. He had an aquiline nose and a mustache. A man with a very tall stature and a very big nose followed closely behind him. As soon as he entered the forest, he shouted, "The great general of the Western Xia countries conquering the East has arrived. The beggar clan's clan leader comes forward to pay his respects." The voice sounded eccentric. It was none other than the man who had just spoken. He swept his eyes around and saw Chun Ong and several dozens of horsemen. He stopped on the side and said with a shrill laugh, "Who are you? You dare not to dismount when you see the great general of the Western Xia countries conquering the East?" While saying that, he raised the horsewhip in his hand and whipped it toward Chenang's face. The beggar clan people on the ground were laughing incessantly. They were waiting to see these two people make a fool of themselves. Chun Ang's martial arts skill was superior, but the other one was an ally. They wanted to see how these two people would end up. They saw a silver flash in the air. The big-nosed man with the horsewhip fell down from his horse. He struggled to cover his throat. A black swallow-shaped dart was dripping blood. The man struggled for a while, kicked his leg, and then stopped moving. "I haven't been angry for a long time. I'm a bit rusty." Chun Ong wiped his right hand and coldly looked at the dead body on the ground. He sneered and said, "You have already lost your country, yet you still think your surname is Zhao." Then he turned his head to look at the great general of the Eastern Xia country's flag. He slightly raised his right hand, and a silver thread suddenly shot out from his back and tore the flag into pieces. It was Huang Chong who gave them a good show. The beggar clan people loudly cheered, "Good! Well done!" The Beggar Clan people were excited to see the Xixia people suffer a big loss. Chinong helplessly turned his head and said, "That's not what I meant." Huang Chong was startled and doubtfully said, "Didn't you tell me to shoot down the flag?" Seeing Chun Ong was blaming them, the Beggar Clan members hissed loudly, wanting to embarrass this person who flattered them and praised them as their ally. "What's the use of tearing a piece of cloth? I want you to kill people." Chinong sneered coldly. His fingertips slightly flicked, and a few extremely fast, dark shadows shot out. An angry shout came from the sky, for silhouettes dashed out, and a few weapons brought along a strong wind as they flew towards those dark shadows. In midair, the black shadow suddenly exploded, shooting out hundreds of flying needles. Several warriors of Western Xia clutched their faces and screamed as they fell to the ground. It seemed that they would not be able to survive. A figure holding an iron crutch let out a stern shout. The whistling sound was like a receding tide, shaking people's eyes and ears. A mouthful of superior internal energy broke the flying needles in front of Haoyan Tieshu's body, causing them to stop dangerously in front of his nose. Only a skinny man, who was as tall as a bamboo pole, let out a blood-curdling screech. He covered his right hand and retreated a few steps in a hurry. His figure flashed, and he escaped from the range of the flying needles. The remaining two men each unleashed a strange move. They also easily caught the flying needles. However, there were not many people on the Western Xia's side who were still standing. The Beggar Clan disciples sucked in a mouthful of cold air. Only now did they realize how cruel Chinong was. He killed people without blinking an eye, and took people's lives with ease. On one hand, he treated the crown prince of Dali well. On the other hand, he mercilessly killed the Xixia people. The Song dynasty's governor Chinong is here. "Xixia, a small country's envoy, how dare you not come to pay your respects?" Chinong put his hands behind his back and said, "You really brought about your own destruction. It's not wrong to kill you." Haoyan Taishu said angrily, "How dare you? We're the Xixia's envoy. Without the king's order, you killed our envoy. How dare you?" He took out a yellow cloth from his waist and held it above his head. "This is the Xixia's letter of credence. You killed our envoy. What crime do you think you deserve?" "Huang Chong, is this true?" Chen Ong asked with a slight frown. Huang Chong pondered for a moment and said seriously, "The Song dynasty does not kill envoys. When two countries are at war, they do not kill envoys." When the Beggar Clan people heard this, they all frowned and thought, "It's true. In Jianghu, there's a rule that does not kill envoys." The Song dynasty also wants to save face, but they still felt very wronged. The Xixia dared to kill our people and come to Suzhou to cause trouble, but we can't do anything about it. It's really infuriating. The Beggar Clan people thought angrily, but they heard Chinong frown and say, "So, I killed the wrong person?" Huang Chong nodded awkwardly. When Haoyan Taishu heard this, he said arrogantly, "I will definitely report you to the Song Emperor and execute your entire family. Why don't you quickly arrest them?" Chinong sighed deeply and said, "How could I be wrong? It must be these bandits and robbers who killed the Western Xia's envoys and stole their flags to disguise themselves as the Western Xia's envoys. The real envoys must have been killed by them. Men, come with me to avenge our Western Xia allies." He immediately turned hostile. A strange light flashed in his hand, and Haoyan Taishu fell to the ground, clutching his crotch. If Duan Yanqing hadn't pulled him, the silver nail would have been nailed between his eyebrows. Chinong smiled and slowly walked toward the Xixia people. The Xixia envoys couldn't help but retreat. When they saw the warm smile on Chunang's face, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts. Chinong killed dozens of people with a smile. When the people saw his smiling face, they felt as if they had fallen into an abyss of darkness. These Xixia warriors were also ruthless characters who had fought hard on the battlefield. However, the moment they saw Chinong, they felt as if they had fallen into a boundless darkness. It was as if there were ferocious beasts gnashing their teeth and claws all around them. Everyone present was a master of martial arts, but under this oppressive aura, they didn't dare to make a sound. Duan Yanqing stared at Chun Ang's smiling face with an indifferent look in his eyes. He was the only one whose expression didn't change in the slightest under this strange aura. He faintly said, "Sir, you are very powerful and have great martial arts. We, the four great villains, are just trying to make a living. Can you stop this martial art and let us leave?" This rustling aura was actually a kind of martial art. The people present couldn't help but focus their eyes and fight against this aura. After a while, someone fell to the ground with a pale face due to excessive mental consumption. A boorish man suddenly broke free from the aura and shouted, "Boss, let me do it." Duan Yu saw him and said loudly, "Disciple, why don't you kowtow to your master?" The South Sea crocodile god, Yu Lao-san, looked manic and ferocious. He was obviously in a rage. When he saw Duan Yu, he shouted, "Get lost! I don't have a master." He stretched out his right hand with unparalleled speed. Before he even reached Chunong, a strong gust of wind blew his hair away. A large steel pincer wrapped around Chunang's waist. Yu Lao-san twisted his waist, and his whole body was like a flipping crocodile tearing towards Chunang's waist. His feet, shoulders, arms, and the big pincers exerted force at the same time. The force ran through his whole body, and the pincers opened and closed with great force. Chapter 66. When he exerted his strength, Yu Lao-san's dantian was rooted in the soles of his feet, and the triangular area between his waist and abdomen was stretched taut. His entire body was like a drawn bow, and with the steel pincers in his hands as a fulcrum, he suddenly pounced forward. This move was incomparably fast, like a giant crocodile pouncing forward to bite. "I'll tear you into two pieces." Yu Lao-san sneered and stomped his feet on the ground. His huge body nimbly flipped, and his top body released a huge amount of kinetic energy. The steel pincers became even fiercer, and they were aimed at Chunang's waist. What a big crocodile! Chunang's eyes lit up slightly, and he looked at the charging Yu Lao-san with interest. With a misstep, he stood in a position that made Yu Lao-san extremely uncomfortable. Seeing that he could not exert his strength smoothly, Yu Lao-san was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He forcefully twisted the steel pincers, and his speed inevitably slowed down by a third. Duan Yu, who was standing at the side, was extremely shocked. He thought to himself, "My dear friend, your footwork is so profound. It's so similar to my wave-like, subtle steps. Even if it were me, I could only take one step forward and then take 3 steps back. That fatty wouldn't be able to catch up." However, Chunong did not do as he thought. Instead, he took a step forward to meet Yu Lao-san. However, his position just happened to be in Yu Lao-san's blind spot. Chunong placed his hands on the 2 huge teeth of the steel pincers and exerted a bit of force to forcibly close the pincers. Then, he raised his hands and slapped Yu Lao-san to the ground. What powerful martial arts! Duan Yu could not help but exclaim. Wang Yuyin narrowed her eyes and furrowed her brows. That person's martial arts are so strange. It's as if I can see the shadows of many different martial arts, but at the same time, they're not. That divine crocodile of the South Sea, Yu Lao-san, couldn't even last 1 round against him. I'm afraid that even older cousin is no match for him. She said apprehensively, "If someone like that comes looking for trouble with the Murong family, older cousin will be in danger." Duan Yu noticed the frown on Wang Yuyin's face and tried to curry favor with her. "That brother over there is using the book of changes footwork. Goe Mei pursues Wu Wang. Wu Wang 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 pursues Wu Wang. And Wu Wang pursues Wu Wang." Wang Yuyin was worried about her cousin, and she couldn't help but ask, "What can young Master Duan see?" She felt uneasy. On one hand, she felt that she was deceiving Duan Yu, but on the other hand, She wanted to probe for some information on behalf of her cousin. She felt conflicted, and her face flushed red with embarrassment. Duan Yu was stunned. He said in a daze, "That brother has integrated the art of war and the book of changes into martial arts, so he must be someone who likes to take the initiative. His mental cultivation method must be Sun Tzu's art of war, as swift as the wind, as gentle as the forest, as aggressive as fire, as immovable as the mountain, as elusive as the shadow. Move like thunder." With a palm strike, Chen Ong sent Yun Zhonghe, who had stepped forward to help, flying 30 feet away. He tumbled and crashed into a tree, while his other hand firmly grasped Yu Laosan's steel pincers. As he watched Yu Laosan hurriedly open the giant pincers, his face flushed with anxiety, he laughed. "Your nickname is Crocodile, and your martial arts are like a crocodile's. Could it be that your brain is also like a crocodile's? What nonsense are you spouting? When I open the pincers, I'll clamp you to death." Yu Laosan roared. "Idiot! Don't you know that when a crocodile is at its weakest, it's about to open its mouth?" Chenong tilted his head and looked at him, laughing. "Once its mouth is closed, the crocodile can't escape." Yu Laosan was slightly stunned and roared, "Nonsense!" But he gave up on the giant pincers, and his hands were like two sledgehammers, smashing towards Chun Ang's head. He exerted all his strength, and his internal force struck out with an overwhelming force. Chun Ang's figure flashed, and he moved like a thunderbolt, striking at his back with his palm. "Laosan!" Yi Ernyang exclaimed. Yu Laosan's body trembled slightly, and like a collapsing mountain or jade pillar, he fell down with a loud bang. His body trembled slightly and then stopped moving. Yi Ernyang's eyes were wide open. She deeply revered her eldest brother, Duan Yanqing, and didn't get along well with Yun Zhonghe, the pervert. Among the 4 evildoers, Yu Laosan had the best relationship with her. Although they quarreled, they still had some true feelings for each other. Before she could react, Yun Zhonghe, who had climbed up, spat out dark red blood and sat down dejectedly. In just a few breaths, 2 of the 4 evildoers were gone. Everyone present was distressed. Even though the beggar sect people cheered, they were still shocked by Chun Ang's ferocity. Yi Ernyang wailed and was about to charge forward and fight. "Enough! Ernyang, you're no match for him." Duan Yanqing stopped her with his iron crutch. Duan Yanqing looked at Chun Ong seriously and said in a deep voice, "Who are you? Why do you want to make things difficult for us? We, the 4 evildoers, have never provoked you, but you've attacked us as soon as we met. I don't believe that you don't know the methods of the 4 evildoers. Methods of harming one's family." Chenong sighed and said, "Jianghu matters, Jianghu disciples, Jianghu elders. Don't harm one's family, and don't involve the common people. No matter good or evil, they won't disturb the innocent people. This is the rule of Jianghu. This is also the bearing of the people of Jianghu. Only you, the 4 evildoers, dare to do evil to the innocent people." Yun Zhonghe, Yu Laosan killed indiscriminately, and Yi Ernyang angered both men and gods. She played with babies and killed them. Although you, Duan Yanqing, disdained to do this, you are their eldest brother, so you have a responsibility. You are highly skilled in martial arts, and your methods are ruthless. The people of Jianghu shouldn't provoke you for these common people." His words were full of emotion. Many beggar sect disciples looked ashamed. Many people in the Wulin world lowered their heads and sighed. The atmosphere was heavy. Chun Ong shouted sternly, "But my great song won't. I won't either. I, Chun Ong, will avenge these innocent people." Huang Chang's eyes were red. He stood up and stood beside Chun Ong. He cupped his hands to the sky and said, "We are under the Imperial Court's 36 prohibition of martial arts to monitor the world of Jianghu. Those who commit crimes, abuse their power, and kill the innocent will be beheaded. Those who betray the country, bully the good, and disturb the local forces will be eradicated. Those who violate the law, we will strike them." The riders in red behind him shouted in unison, "Those who violate the law, we will strike them. Those who commit crimes, kill. Those who kill the innocent, kill. Those who kidnap, kill. Those who run amok, kill. Those who rebel, kill." 36 words were uttered in a row. Not only were the remnants of the Western Xia army intimidated, but even the beggar sect disciples and the elders of Jianghu were disturbed by the murderous aura. They felt a sense of vigilance, like a sharp blade hanging over their heads. The skin on their backs was slightly numb, and their hearts were trembling. Good spirit, good power. Duan Yu praised. The military power is strong, and the law is strong to protect the country. The Great Song is really a great country. He thought of the Gao family's rebellion, and could not help but feel a surge of hot blood in his heart. But Wang Yuyin, who was beside him, was worried. She thought anxiously, "My cousin has violated the imperial court's taboo, and now he will be investigated. That person's martial arts is so high, and he is so terrifying. The imperial court is so powerful. What should my cousin do? What should I do? I thought I could help my cousin by knowing all kinds of martial arts, but now I only regret that I didn't learn the art of war." Duan Yanqing was momentarily pressured by the momentum, but he had been through all kinds of hardships and had already developed an extremely tenacious heart. He quickly recovered from the impact and said in a low voice, good spirit, if you want to eliminate us, you must have the ability first." Yi Ernyang, holding a child, rushed over with a scream and threw the child to Chunong. The child's cry was heard in the air. Chunong sighed slightly and leaped up to catch the child, regardless of the two's joint attack. "Watch out!" Seeing Yi Ernyang and Duan Yanqing joining hands to attack Chun Ang's vital points, Duan Yu couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise. His body had already pounced forward, and the sword Qi in his right hand pointed forward. A 4 feet long invisible sword Qi suddenly unfolded. He took 3 steps diagonally up and 2 steps sideways, squeezing through the crowd like a slippery loach. Huang Chang also rushed over, but a Xixiao warrior suddenly appeared from the side and blocked him with a saber. The two exchanged several moves, and Huang Chang was slightly shocked, for the warrior's martial arts were not inferior to the beggar clan's elders. But he did not know that the warrior was even more shocked, for he had never imagined that the green-robed scholar's martial arts would be far superior to his. The two fought for a while, and it was difficult to determine the winner within a few moves. Duan Yu was several feet away, and for a moment, only Chenong, with the child in his arms, was left to face the attacks of Yi Ernyang and Duan Yanqing. Duan Yanqing's one yang finger was concentrated on his iron crutch, and its power was astonishing. One finger could break through any protective innate qi in the world, and it was the best counter to the Golden Bell shield, iron shirt, and Vajra body. Even if Chenong were to be hit by this finger, it would be difficult for him to gain any advantage. The one yang finger was indeed marvelous. As for Yi Ernyang, she was just a small problem. Facing the attacks of two formidable enemies, Chenong was only slightly moved. He made a pulling gesture with his right hand, and a round energy burst out. The energy of life and death mixed together, and the way of yin and yang restrained each other. The mysterious energy overturned the heaven and earth. Yi Ernyang's body suddenly trembled, and she could not help but change direction. Duan Yanqing also felt his vision blur, and his body involuntarily followed the flow of the energy. When he saw Yi Ernyang, he only had time to withdraw 80% of the energy in his hand, and the rest hit Yi Ernyang. Yi Ernyang let out a muffled cry, and blood spilled out of her mouth and fell to the ground. Stars transposition. 3 voices rang out at the same time. Wang Yin looked at Elder Su of the Beggar Clan, and then looked at the Xixiao warrior. She felt that it was reasonable for Elder Su to be shocked, but why did the Xixiao warrior look even more shocked than her? The Western Xiao warrior was so shocked that even his voice changed. He asked in a stern voice, "Who are you? Why do you know the Big Dipper transposition?" His face was filled with malevolence and disbelief. Chapter 67. Duan Yanqing leaned on his crutches and stood in front of Yi Ernyang. His expression was very serious. He regarded Chenong as the greatest enemy in his life. Just now, he realized that his martial arts were not as good as Chenang's. His defeat this time was because of the difference in their strength. When Chenong made his move, he did not pay much attention. But after the fight, he realized that this person's martial arts were unparalleled in the world, and he was not his match. Realizing this, he thought of retreating. He said in a deep voice, I have heard of the Qian. It is the Ming cult's supreme skill. So you're the current cult leader of the Ming cult. I was friends with your former cult leader, Feng La. Why are you so aggressive? The Western Xia people arrived late and did not hear the news from the north. The young man who delivered the letter was still hiding on the side, shivering. The crowd of beggars said, So it is the Ming cult's martial arts. We have never heard of it. But that cripple guessed wrong. Not only this person is not a member of the Ming cult, he even chased the Ming cult's cult leader for more than 300 li, someone else thought, on a deeper level. For the Ming cult to have this kind of martial art, it's clear that they're not some kind people. Not only did this person kill their big cult and cause them to scatter like monkeys when the tree falls, he even learned their most powerful martial art. He's really a powerful person. As soon as Duan Yanqing said this, he felt that something was wrong. The beggar clan's mocking eyes made his heart sink. Did I guess wrong? You are not a member of the Ming cult? You are half right. You are one of the few well-informed people in Jianghu. Chenong smiled and said calmly, The Ming cult lives in a remote corner and is very isolated. It is very difficult for outsiders to get information about the cult. Otherwise, the Qian would not be as good as the Murong family's Big Dipper to know. To know about the Ming cult's supreme martial arts, you have surpassed 99% of the elders in Jianghu. Elder Su's face turned red when he heard this. Duan Yanqing did not look happy. He said in a deep voice, But I guessed wrong. What is your background? I don't care where you came from. The world has long since come to a conclusion about the wonders of the Murong clan's shifting stars. It's not up to you to comment on it. The Western Xiao warrior made a feint and retreated from Huang Chang's grasp. Then, his body flashed and appeared in front of Chun Ong. The ancestors of the Murong clan only managed to get a glimpse of Ming cult's martial art, and they were able to turn it into their own martial art. They created a martial art that is not inferior to heaven and earth great shift. Of course they are amazing. Amazing. Chun Ong used the word amazing twice to praise the Murong clan. A divine light flashed in the eyes of the Xixiao warrior. He laughed heartily and said, Give him a taste of his own medicine. The senior of the Murong family is naturally a heaven-warping hero. It's not your turn to spout nonsense here. I don't know where you've stolen some fur from. How dare you make a fool of yourself in front of the heroes of the world? Stellar transposition, naturally miraculous. The corners of Chun Ang's mouth curled up into a smile. Looking at the extremely pleased Murong Fu in front of him, he unhurriedly said, Unfortunately, the affairs of the world advance. The path of martial arts is like rowing a boat against the current. If you don't advance, you'll fall behind. Even I have to say that Murong Longqing's stellar transposition is exquisite, from the hands of your descendants. Chenong looked at Murong Fu coldly. His words struck at the bottom of Murong Fu's heart. So what? Murong Fu's expression changed. It was as if he had been stabbed at the point he didn't want to mention the most. He gritted his teeth and said coldly, You are worthy, I am worthy. Chenong said calmly, Heaven and earth great shift has been innovated in my hands. It has reached a whole new level. Of course, I can comment on your martial art. Murong Fu. When everyone heard this name, they were all shocked. Wang Yuyin couldn't help but exclaim. Feng Polio and Bao Budong looked at the person on the stage excitedly and then fiercely glared at the beggar sect disciples that surrounded them. Chenong looked at him and continued. Although you don't care about anything and have the ambition to restore your country, it is a pity that you don't have much talent. You forget about righteousness when you see small benefits. You keep struggling, but in the end, it is just a dream. In the path of martial arts, you are knowledgeable, but not specialized. You have great ambitions, but you are mediocre. You are always struggling on the edge of an illusory dream. In terms of martial arts cultivation and magnanimity, you are not as good as Xiao Feng. In terms of the ability to raise flags and rebel, you are much weaker than Ming cult. Apart from an empty reputation, there is nothing worthy of praise. Xiao Feng is as famous as you, and it is a disgrace to him. When Chenong saw that Murong Fu's face was turning darker, he said indifferently, "Even I don't think highly of your ability to rebel. You still have to deal with the Ming cult, which is our greatest threat, before you can even have the chance to deal with a ringworm like you." "Enough!" Murong Fu shouted loudly. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt as if his body was being pulled by an invisible string. With a strange flash, he arrived behind Chenong. He gathered his strength on his fingertips and pointed at Chenong with the joined finger. The beggar sect's martial arts teaching elders' expression changed greatly. He cried out in alarm, "Floating silk in the sky." Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Even Duan Yanqing couldn't react in time. He saw Murong Fu's movements and thought, "This person's martial arts are not bad, but it is a pity that he is far inferior to that official. With the southern seas floating silk in the sky, he should be able to withstand 1 or 2 moves. If I attack him together, I might not necessarily be inferior to that official." With this thought in mind, Duan Yanqing also pounced forward. With a tap of his steel crutch, he attacked Chenong from the front and Murong Fu from the back. The power of the one yang finger was unleashed to the extreme, and it was enough to burn one's body with yang fire. The joined finger was swift and fierce, while the one yang finger was vigorous. Both were unparalleled finger techniques in the world. Chenong felt a faint stabbing pain in his back and chest. At that moment, the two of them were still a few feet away from each other, but the force could already pass through. It was truly an extremely terrifying martial art. Who in the world would dare to ignore the combination of these two finger techniques? Chenong focused slightly, and his right hand silently reached out. He bent his elbow, and his movements were as smooth as flowing water. His two hands moved in a circle, and the force alternated between fast and slow. It was reserved and restrained. His will, qi, form, and spirit actually seemed to have merged into one. Murong Fu felt as if his joined finger had fallen into a ball of cotton. He was wrapped up by a tough and lingering force. He continued to point at Chenong, but he was pulled to the side by the force. His finger force was entangled and accumulated, and he was toying with Chun Ang's hands, unable to explode. After a while, he had already accumulated the force of 7 or 8 fingers. Duan Yanqing broke out in a cold sweat. His hands trembled violently, and he could barely hold on. Under the pull of the force, the accumulated force of the one yang finger could no longer be controlled by him. The two of them were affected by the martial art, and they could not help but execute it. They circulated their strength according to Chun Ang's guidance. It was as if there was a soft force in front of them that fought against the two finger forces. They could receive the force and control it freely. However, whenever the two of them wanted to withdraw their strength, they felt empty and powerless. They could neither release nor withdraw the force of the two fingers, and it made them feel very uncomfortable. Before they knew it, Chenong had carefully observed the joined finger and the one yang finger. He tried to figure out the wonders of it, and when he came back to his senses, he realized that Duan Yanqing and Murong Fu were sweating profusely. They were on the verge of collapsing. They could no longer control the force that Chenong was guiding. If Chenong withdrew his force, they would bleed from their orifices and burn their organs. The beggars' sect members were shocked. They could not believe what they were seeing. They looked at the two experts who were being toyed with. They were so shocked that they could not even describe it. If the two of them wanted him to stand, he would stand. If they wanted him to jump, he would jump. They were like two puppets with strings pulled. It was extremely comical. However, no one present had a smile on their faces or in their hearts. They only felt silence and sorrow. Murong Fu was so ashamed that he wanted to die. He let out a shrill roar. "Are you going to kill me or not? Are you going to kill me or not?" Wang Yin was watching from the side. She almost cried. She saw Duan Yu standing not far away and panicked. She hurriedly said, "Young Master Duan, please save my cousin." Duan Yu heard her voice and thought sadly, "Miss Wang is anxious for her cousin. If we were in different places, would she be willing to shout for me? Forget it. Miss Wang is kind. No matter who is above her, she will be anxious for him. What am I to you? She still likes her cousin." As he thought about it, he felt that he had no more business, So he closed his eyes and barged into the circle that Chun'Ong had drawn. Good timing. I'll give you a big gift. Chun'Ong smiled and guided the two forces to surround Duan-Yu. He patted Duan-Yu's hands and lifted Duan-Yu's hands to meet the two's fingers. The two forces wrapped around Chun'Ong's hands. The dark North Divine Art had sensed the internal energy and was automatically activated. An endless stream of internal energy flowed from Murong Fu and Duan Yanqing's fingertips into Duan-Yu's body. When Murong Fu and Duan Yanqing executed the Northern Underworld Divine Art, the internal energy gushed out and disappeared without a trace. Only Chun'Ong noticed the subtlety of it. He controlled the energy from his two fingers and slowly poured it out, smoothly preventing Duan-Yu from getting injured. Only when Chun'Ong finished learning the subtlety of it did he shake off the two and send Duan-Yu flying dozens of feet away with a palm strike. Duan Yanqing and Murong Fu's faces were pale, their breaths were weak. Duan Yanqing was still fine. With the support of Yi Ernyang, who had finished regulating his breathing, he was able to walk with difficulty. Murong Fu directly fell on the dusty ground, cut a sorry figure, completely losing his previous majestic appearance. Albai cried out in alarm. She pushed away the Beggar Clan disciples and stepped forward to help him up. Naturally, the Beggar Clan would not make things difficult for a little girl, but Murong Fu struggled to push Albai's support away. "I don't need anybody to help me," he sternly said. His expression was one of fear. "Where's my internal energy? Where's my internal energy?" Albai sobbed, "Young master." Murong Fu looked up to the sky and laughed. He pushed Albai away. "I haven't lost yet." Chun'Ong sighed and walked slowly to Murong Fu. "You really haven't lost. You've lost 50% of your internal energy, but it doesn't mean you're a cripple. Only after 100 refinements can you forge fine steel. Since ancient times, those who achieve great things have all gone through trials and tribulations. Your attitude really makes people look down on you." Murong Fu listened to his words and struggled for a while. Finally, he calmed down. He tidied up his appearance and said quietly, "Your Excellency has won." Unexpectedly, he also struggled to stand up, his face more resolute. Compared to before, there was an indescribable feeling surging in his body. Chun'Ong looked back at Yi Ernyang and said coldly, "I hope you'll be there at the Shaolin Temple meeting. Whether you're happy or sad, retribution or not, I want you to face it calmly. Are you willing to go?" Yi Ernyang was silent for a while. Then she asked in a dry voice, "Is it about my enemy? Half a lifetime of karma, half a lifetime of sorrow and joy." Chun'Ong did not answer directly. Yi Ernyang said in a low voice, "I'm willing to go." She raised her head and looked at Chun'Ong with sparkling eyes. She said calmly, "There's always a voice urging me that I won't regret it. Don't you think so?" Chun'Ong did not answer her. He looked around at the messy scene and killed Haoyan Taishu with one palm. He turned around and patted Duan-Yu's shoulder, saying, "Prince, it's time for us to go." Duan-Yu was startled and asked blankly, "Where to?" "Follow young Master Murong to Swallow Dock." Chapter 68. The misty rain of Jiangnan was supposed to be a lingering scenery. Coupled with the gentle breeze, it was intoxicating. Chun'Ong stood in front of the Shengshui Pavilion, holding a scroll in his hands. Beside him was a cup of green tea. Floating in the light green tea were pieces of deep green tea leaves, like small beads covered with fine hair. With a slight sway, a fragrant aroma wafted into the air. These pearl-shaped tea leaves were a specialty of the mountains near Lake Tai. The locals called them frightening fragrance, and later generations called them bilyuakun. Incense, scroll, and tea. Chun'Ong looked very relaxed. Surrounded by clouds and mist, there was a sense of transcendence in the misty rain. At this moment, the books piled up beside him were all the books that were still in the water-perfumed pavilion and the Langxian Jade Cave. Although the Murong family had taken good care of these precious books, they had never carefully tidied them up. They viewed these secret martial arts books as their exclusive property. How could they easily let others come in and tidy them up and flip through them? Murong Fu alone only picked some famous martial arts books to read. Naturally, he missed a lot of things. In Langxian Jade Cave, the free and unfettered sex classification method was still maintained. There were many empty theories of martial arts, and even some strange and unorthodox things were classified as miscellaneous knowledge. They were scattered messily on the bookshelves. There were many notes and writings that were like reflections, but no one organized them. It seemed that since the free and unfettered sect, these things were not valued. The fact that they could be preserved was due to the relocation of Langshan blessed land. Reality proved that many a time, pearls were always hidden in the mud. In the process of organizing these martial arts books, Chunong and Huangchang made many discoveries. Sometimes, the title of a book could be misleading. Chunong found many wondrous things in an incomplete Tang Dynasty copy of Golden Bell Shield. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that this Golden Bell Shield was actually a remnant of Unbreakable Golden Body. It had a familiar name. Half of the 30-odd copies of Golden Bell Shield in the Water Perfume Pavilion had different contents. Some of these secret manuals were good, some were bad, some were crude, and some were exquisite and magical. Most of the time, it was just the author's incoherent thoughts, but in Chunong's eyes, it was an incomparably precious inspiration and wisdom, especially the martial arts that were widely spread in Jianghu. There were 37 versions of Iron Skin and 51 versions of Eagle Claw. Even Flying on Grass had 12 sects and 29 different versions. Other than the names, the contents were completely different. Chunong often used a stack of white paper to record the secrets within in 2 or 3 pages. He read thousands of martial arts books every day, and the white paper in front of him became thicker and thicker. When he finished reading a section, Chunong would organize his reading notes, summarizing the summaries and summaries into summaries. Chunong would often write a thick stack of white paper. The more he read, the slower the speed at which the white paper increased. Many books that couldn't be divided into different types had to be reclassified. Time flew, and in the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. Chunong had already finished reading more than half of the books. His notes were also thick, and they were as tall as a palm. He had also accumulated a whole body of notes on summaries and summaries of the books. Countless martial arts wisdom, some principles summarized by third-rate experts through hard work, secret manuals passed down in sects and revised generation after generation, and the exclusive martial arts and practice notes of some experts were scattered, comprehended, and mastered by Chunong together with the books in the imperial palace. They became his rich accumulation. Even if he didn't count these, Chunong had also discovered hundreds of valuable books in the books of the 2 sections. What surprised him was that Unfettered Master had annotations on many of the secret manuals, but it seemed that he was the first person to discover them. In the secret manuals on palm techniques and punches, there were some arguments mixed in. When they were sorted out, it was more than half of the Tianshan plum-breaking hand. Chunong even found a few words on the northern underworld divine skill, the 8 desolations and 6 directions supremacy, and the minor formless mental cultivation method in some of the notes. He linked these martial arts together and formed a clear martial arts vein. Back then, the Unfettered Master had also gone through these secret manuals to sort out the unique martial arts of the Unfettered School. Chunong copied this path and unexpectedly grasped the thoughts of the Unfettered Master. Many scattered points of wisdom that didn't form into martial arts thoughts became Chunong's most precious harvest. This was like an exchange between the two of them that transcended time. The sparks of wisdom collided and sparkled. With Huangchang's help, Chunong quickly summarized the books that were still in the Water Pavilion and the Jade Cave. There were a total of 36,814 complete books and 3,021 incomplete books. After eliminating the duplicates and meaningless books, and sorting out the inconsistencies into the most complete version, and then correcting the mistakes and finding the mistakes, there were only 9,063 books left in the collection. Just Chunong's reading notes alone had 67 volumes and 80,000 pages. The project could be said to be huge, and the value was also infinite. These 67 volumes of reading notes, each volume was the world's top martial arts secret manual, or it could be said that the world's martial arts were a collection. Except for the I Jing Jing, 6-pulse divine sword, and 18 subduing dragon palms, and a few others, it was a collection of all the martial arts in the world. This time, Chen Ong had accumulated a lot of knowledge and gained a lot, far beyond his imagination. Huang Chang was so engrossed in it that he forgot to eat and sleep day and night. He studied the Shaolin 72 consummate arts and the various martial arts of the Carefree sect. Chen Ong was sure that he had learned more than the orthodox Carefree sect disciples and the Shaolin monks. Huang Chang sighed and thought that Chun Ang's reading notes should not be called Longhuan Sheng, but General Principles of the World's Martial Arts. This General Principles was obscure, and only those who had read the world's martial arts would be able to understand a thing or two. There were actually not many who were qualified to understand it. There were only 2.5 people by Chun Ang's side. Huang Chang was one, Wang Yuyin was the other, and the remaining half was actually Morong Fu. In Chen Ang's own General Principles of the World's Martial Arts was like a heavenly book. Not only did the reader need to be proficient in martial arts, but they also needed to be proficient in medicine, mathematics, divination, astrology, qiming, duanjia, and bewitching techniques. Only then would they be able to understand 30% of it. If they wanted to understand it all, not only would they need a dozen doctorates on Earth, they would also need to know some alien science. It seemed that no one could learn this General Principles of the World's Martial Arts. The books of Longhuan and Huanshi can only be counted as 40% of the world's martial arts. The name General Principles does not match the reality. Chenong sighed and turned to look at Huang Chang. Don't be fascinated by the martial arts inside. You have to know that the world's martial arts are endlessly complex, and there are many areas where there are conflicts. You only need to comprehend the wisdom. There is no need to practice. Huang Chang was puzzled. The Water Pavilion's martial arts are complete. Even the Inner Palace's martial arts library cannot compare to 10,000th of it. I carefully counted, and there are only 220 scrolls that the Inner Palace has. As for the martial arts that the Water Pavilion does not have, there are even detailed records of the Xixia, Hui, Tubo, and Liao people's martial arts. This is only 40% of the world's martial arts. 40% is just me raising it too high. The principles and wisdom of martial arts can only be described on paper. You also know a thing or two about the low level of knowledge of martial arts in the world. Even if they have some wisdom and ideas, it would be difficult for them to put them into words. Are there not many masters who are illiterate? Chenong said faintly. Huang Chang was slightly lost in thought. He sighed and said, "The mysteries of the mysteries are difficult to describe." Chenong felt more and more deeply that martial arts were hidden in all aspects. It was not something that could be described in a secret manual. No wonder the Shaolin Temple was not afraid of their martial arts secret manuals being leaked. This was because the Shaolin Temple's inheritance was not only in the Sutra Depository, but also in meditation, the guidance of a master, the true teachings passed down by word of mouth. There was even a kind of atmosphere, culture, and the way to comprehend the teachings passed down from generation to generation. Only by using the world as a teacher could one understand the true meaning of the world's martial arts. Every world had its own scenery. Its inheritance was similarly deep and profound. The difference between a martial arts level should not be its power, but its wisdom. This was because power was easy to obtain, but the state of mind was hard to obtain. The martial arts of every world were deep and profound. There were countless people who perfected them. Some martial arts that could control the wind and thunder and had boundless power might not be as profound as the light and floating taiji. It was short-sighted to judge martial arts based on power. How could a fish and a bird be compared? The path of inner strength was naturally weaker compared to controlling the world's origin energy, wind, fire, and thunder. However, Chenong found that this kind of self-sufficient divine ability system was more suitable for him. Who could guarantee that the world's origin energy was of the same nature and expression in every world? When Chenong sensed the origin power, he found that the Sky Dragon world's origin power was almost dead. There was not the slightest ripple. The strength of a Jedi Knight might not be better than a martial artist here. Chenang's eyes were azure blue. He felt the abnormally pure inner strength in his body. It was nourishing his body and spirit. He looked up and smiled. The Tao was not to look down on others. It was to learn from the lowly and discover the brilliance of the ordinary. Chapter 69. The scenery in Jiangnan was the most enchanting. Before he knew it, Chenang had already stayed in Canhe Villa for 2 months. He read and practiced martial arts every day, and he looked very relaxed. It was as if he was completely immersed in the mysteries of martial arts. He didn't even care about the fact that the 2 little girls from the Murong family had sneaked out. If it were not for the fact that everyone knew this, it would be very difficult to connect the martial prohibition hall, which had stirred up a storm of blood in the martial arts world of Jiangnan, with this indifferent young scholar. Who would believe that Governor Chun, who was so famous in the martial arts world that he could stop a child from crying, would dress like a devout scholar? Big Brother Chun, please let Miss Wang go. Duan Yu ran over anxiously. When he saw Chenang, he begged, Miss Wang might be related to Sir Murong, but I can guarantee that she definitely does not know about the Murong family's scheme. Chun Ong raised his head in surprise and said in puzzlement, I didn't make things difficult for Miss Wang. Don't worry. After we search Langxian Jade Cave, the Martial Prohibition Hall will not disturb Montauk Villa anymore. It's not because of the Martial Prohibition Hall. Duan Yu paced back and forth anxiously. It's because of Madame Wang. Miss Wang had a falling out with Madame Wang because of Sir Murong, and she is now imprisoned by her. She has not eaten anything for 3 days. What should we do? I don't care about that, Chenang said indifferently. This is her family's business. What can I do? Can I break her out of prison? It would be better if Miss Wang ran out on her own. Run out on her own? Duan Yu's eyes lit up, and he came to a sudden realization. He saw that Chenang was copying something, and he said in puzzlement, Big Brother Chun, I see that you write without stopping. You can write hundreds of thousands of words in a day, but it's an extremely simple theory. Big Brother Chun, you are a very learned person. What's the point of writing all this? Isn't writing in theory for people to read? Chenang said with a smile, Since it's for people to read, it's better to be simple and straightforward. Why do you have to be mysterious? Simple things that you see, to many people, are like heavenly books. I have written these so that everyone in the world can understand them, so that everyone can learn knowledge. I only need to worry that it is not simple enough, but I do not need to worry that there is no knowledge. Duan Yu praised. Big Brother Chun, you are really ambitious. He flipped open the manuscript that Chenang had placed on the table, and was surprised to see that it was filled with some farming and weaving characters, accompanied by a few catchy lines of songs. Duan Yu found it both smooth and tongue-twisting. He frowned and switched to the local accent. This time it was much smoother. Duan Yu recited it quickly and felt his breathing calm down. Then he realized to his surprise that when he recited the incantation, the rhythm of the incantation corresponded with each other. It was an extremely simple breathing technique. Connecting it to the drawings he had seen just now, he realized that they were actually the simplest martial arts. Brother Chun, is this a martial art? Duan Yu flipped through the stack of notes in disbelief. They were all simple martial arts principles and cultivation techniques. Are you talking about this 100 Fields martial arts? Chenang smiled and said, Farmers farm and women weave. They are exhausted every day. I have created the 100 Fields martial arts, combining breathing techniques with a horse riding stance to train their bodies through simple daily labor. I hope that everyone in the world will be strong and healthy, so that they will not suffer from illness. Big Brother Chun is kind and benevolent. If the people of Great Song are strong and healthy, Great Song will prosper. Duan Yu said happily. Chun Ong smiled and agreed. The way of martial arts can make people constantly strive for self-improvement. Unceasing self-improvement could be said to have summarized the essence of martial arts. But what Chenang did not say was, when these straightforward martial arts principles spread throughout the world, how many people would benefit from it? When the world's farmers and weavers were all martial artists, how many experts would stand out? That would be a golden age of martial arts. Duan Yu was still young, and after staying at Chenang's place for a long time, he became restless. His face was full of embarrassment, as if he had something to ask, but was too embarrassed to do so. "Is there anything else, young Master Duan?" Chenong knew that if he did not ask, this hothead would not be able to speak for a long time. Chenong was interested in his martial arts, but it did not mean that he liked to have such a person hanging around him while he was studying. "Big Brother Chun," Duan Yu said embarrassedly, "Madame Wong wanted me to ask you how long you will be staying at Canny Village." After saying that, he could not help but explain himself. Madame Wong did not mean anything else. "It's just that." Chenong was extremely rude to Madame Wong. In front of her, he made a few of her right-hand men become flower fertilizer. If Madame Wong did not offer the Langxian Jade Cave in time, there would be a beautiful death row prisoner in the prison. After being threatened, Madame Wong still dared to touch the imperial court's tiger whiskers. She really did not want to live anymore. "It won't be long." Chenong interrupted him and looked at the misty lake outside the window with a smile. "I'm waiting for someone. When he arrives, I will leave so that she doesn't have to worry for too long." "Who are you waiting for, Big Brother Chun?" Duan Yu asked curiously. "My 4 uncles are well informed. They can help you look for him." "There's no need for that. It's just a dead man. Besides, he's already here." Chen Ong cast his gaze towards the lake in the distance. A black shadow that was easily overlooked quickly swept across the surface of the lake. With a light splash on the surface of the lake, the figure flashed and appeared on the shore a few feet away. It was only a dozen steps away from Chen Ong. Even before he appeared, his lightness skill had already taken the lead. Although there were lightness skills, such as swallows flick 3 times and fly on grass in Jianghu, it was just a name. No one could really flick and fly. Chen Ong knew that in a few hundred years, the green-winged Bat King, Wei Yixiao's lightness skill, would be able to fly on grass. He did not expect that he would see swallows flick 3 times who could truly tread on water. To be able to cultivate a third-rate lightness skill to such a miraculous level, the newcomer was not only an expert, but also a grandmaster in martial arts. The man in black said in a low, muffled voice, "I thought that Chen Ong, whose name has shaken the world and stirred up a great storm, was some kind of hero. But after seeing you today, it seems that you are just SOSO. It's just an empty reputation, not worth mentioning." Chen Ong said with a smile. "But old Mister is a dead man. Why are you here to join the fun?" The man in black laughed. His voice shook the water on the roof and caused Duan Yu to stagger. "If this old man doesn't come out, I'm afraid that someone will dig my grave. Even if I become a ghost, I'll still have to crawl out. But I don't know how you managed to see through my great ambition. Murong Bo, you are determined to restore your country. You even gave your child the word Fu. Your ambition is not small. Unfortunately, your means are too inferior. You always go back and forth in the martial arts world. I can't see how you can be considered as a great ambition." Chenong sighed. Murong Bo took off the cloth, covering his face. He was dressed like an old monk. He casually swept a glance at the shocked Duan Yu and suddenly grinned. "Ha ha ha! Brother Chun must be joking." Murong Bo's expression immediately turned friendly. Duan Yu was so scared that he retreated a few steps. He didn't know what this person was planning. "Brother Chun also has a great ambition. It's reasonable for you to look down on me. But Brother Chun, do you know why I've hidden my identity all these years?" Murong Bo calmly smiled. Chen Ong indifferently said, "Old Mr. hid your identity and stirred up a great storm in Jianghu. Crouching Bull Sect's headmaster Ku Bai Sui and Shaolin Temple's Reverend Xian Bei both died in your hands. Apart from hiding your identity, the most important reason was to accumulate resources, goods, and military equipment. Old Mr. also contacted many people. Apart from the heroes of the underworld and the big gangs, even the Tufan Nation's master Jiumaji has a tacit understanding with you. You must have contacted a group of idiots to make an agreement with you." Murongbo laughed and said, "That's right. This old man has been running around for half of my life. Apart from money and military equipment, I also have a lot of connections. As long as this old man calls for help, people will follow me like clouds. Dozens of volunteer armies will respond. The Central Plains will be filled with the flames of war. Liao, Xia, and Tufan will all come to divide the great song." Chenong shook his head and said, "If you were really sure, why would you waste half of your life?" "That's right," Murongbo said with certainty. "The Great Song's territory is stable and the border is stable. Our Morong family is small and weak. Rebuilding our country is easier said than done. If there is no opportunity, my plan for half of my life will be nothing but empty words. Then the only opportunity is when the Central Plains will be in chaos and war will break out everywhere." Chenong added. Murongbo smiled and said, "That's right. I put my hope in the war between the Liao and the Song. Who would have thought that the Liao people did not want to advance? Their military equipment is weak, and they've already lost the desire to conquer the South. I also try to contact the Ming cult and instigate them to rebel against the Song. Unfortunately, they were uprooted by you." Chenong smiled and looked at him coldly. "At this time, I notice that you have great ambition. If we join hands, it will be like adding wings to a tiger. We will divide the Great Song's country. You will have a great achievement. Then you will become a king and rule a country. Wealth and honor will be passed on to your descendants. Isn't that better than working for the Zhao family?" Chenong shook his head and said with a smile, "You don't understand me. Don't use your own heart to speculate about me." Murongbo also sneered. "Why do you need to hide it? You have the Song Emperor's trust. You lead the army outside, but you let the Ming cult's remnants go. Your forbidden martial hall wantonly collected wealth and goods everywhere. You even secretly forged ironware. You mobilized a large number of people and carried out large-scale construction. You even secretly controlled the world's #1 clan, the Beggar Clan. With this kind of behavior, are you still a loyal minister and a filial son? Your martial arts skill is peerless. When the time comes, you will assassinate the Song Emperor. The world will be in chaos. My Murong family will build a righteous banner and send the army to Shandong to coordinate with you. At the same time, Tubo, Shixia, Dali, and Great Liao will rise." Chapter 70. Hearing this, Chenong couldn't help but laugh. Murongbo's ambition to restore his country had already captivated his heart. For the country's affairs, he would do anything, sacrifice anything, use anything, and put his personal grudges and family's happiness in second place. Just this viciousness alone was enough to make him an ambitious and ruthless person. Although he was very concerned about Murong Fu right now, facing this enemy who had humiliated his son, as long as he had value, he would do anything to rope him in. It was hard to tell if this was funny or pitiful. From a certain point of view, this kind of indomitable spirit was worthy of admiration. "Old mister, you look down on this Chun too much." Chenong clasped his hands behind his back and said, "The great undertaking you are pursuing, perhaps in your eyes, it is worth sacrificing everything for. But in this Chen's eyes, what is it? What you said, the title of king, the fame and wealth." Chun Ong slightly paused, then turned around to look at Murongbo. "I'm sorry, this Chen still doesn't put it in my eyes. The fame and wealth of the human world are like dust. I only wish to be like this bright moon, shining for eternity." His tone was calm, his eyes were sincere, but the content of his words made Murongbo unable to suppress the anger in his heart. "If sire is not willing, just directly refuse me. Don't talk nonsense. It will make this old man look down on you. I only ask you, are you willing to divide the Great Song's rivers and mountains with me?" "Not willing." A clear voice without a trace of impatience came from Chun Ong. Murongbo tightly clenched his fists. A layer of tenacious energy faintly appeared on his iron fists. Duan Yu could even see Murongbo's body slightly trembling, obviously trying to suppress himself. "Sire, you have to think carefully if you say it out loud. It will be hard to take back the spilled water. I thought I have already said it very clearly. If you still don't understand, then I will say it again." Chenong coldly said. The answer Murongbo heard was still that resolute and decisive word. "Not willing." Good. Murongbo said the word good 3 times in a row and was already anxious. He calmed his mind and raised his palm. Duan Yu, who was several meters away, could feel the powerful palm. However, after a moment of silence, Morong Bo suddenly put down his palm, and his figure flashed. Then he took down the brush that Chenong had hung on the wall. This surprised Chenong. Even at this point, Morong Fu still did not give up on trying to persuade him. Indeed, Morong Fu was an unyielding and ambitious person of his generation. His will was much more tenacious than Morong Fu's. Unfortunately, Morong Bo had no talent in strategy, which could be seen from Morong Fu. His will was much more tenacious than Morong Fu's. Wang Yian had once said that Morong Fu wants to be a Hu, not a Chinese. He doesn't even want to know Chinese words or read Chinese books. Morong Chun had such thoughts, and had Chun Chun, and had to say Morong Chun and Chun be the Chinet. Morong Bo seemed to want to use the same trick again to subdue him with his martial arts. Chenong could see that Morong Bo wanted to use the same trick again to subdue him with his martial arts. Chenong didn't know whether he should praise him for his heroism or ridicule him for his naivety. In this world, there were not many people who were proficient in hundreds of martial arts, and Morong Bo was one of them. Having such an opponent was really hard to come by. Being able to verify the hundreds of martial arts was exactly what Chenong wanted. Chenong picked up a brush hanging on the table. The ink on the tip of the brush had not dried yet. Duan Yu felt relieved, thinking Chun Dage and Morong Bo are in a hurry, so they are using calligraphy and painting brushes. The tip of the brush is soft and the shaft is loose, so how can it hurt people? Compared to them, they don't really need to put their lives on the line. Before Duan Yu could come back to his senses, he saw Morong Bo brandishing his brush and jabbing it 3 times on Chun Ang's left cheek. With his vigorous internal energy, the tip of the brush was much sharper than the edge of a sword. His strength surged, and the brush seemed to be splashing ink in the air, creating an illusion of thick and colorful colors. The strength of the brush was perfect. Duan Yu was surprised. This man's brush technique is very powerful. In all my life, Uncle Zhu Danshen is the best judge brush I have ever seen. But compared to Senior Morong, he is still a long way behind. This brush technique is perfect. In the past, when Uncle Zhu taught me to read, he said that the facial muscles are like the bones of a willow. But now that I have seen it, I know what it really is. Under Morong Bo's free and easy strokes, every word was soul-stirring. His strokes were like falling stones, and under the tip of the brush, metal and stone could be split open. His painting was like the summer clouds. His strokes were like flowing water. His hook was like a piece of gold. With every turn, it could capture the soul. His spear was like a crossbow. When it was brandished, the wind whistled, and it looked like an elephant moving horizontally and vertically. Every stroke was aimed at Chun Ang's vital acupoints. His brush was like a silver-edged iron pole, far sharper than a sword. "What a good Zhonghuaik steel!" Chen Ong exclaimed in admiration. In midair, Chun Ong raised his brush, exerting his strength in a gentle and graceful manner. Duan Yu saw a small brush blocking Morong Bo's vigorous chi. Every time it lifted and moved, it would hit the weak points of Morong Bo's brush. It was graceful and elegant, round and beautiful. Between the lines, the regular script, the flowing and stopping, the stopping and the flowing. Morong Bo's brush was moving freely, displaying his own satisfaction. The tips of the 2 brushes did not meet. They were all feints. However, Morong Bo's strokes were not as smooth as they were in the beginning. He felt that his strokes were stiff and difficult to write. There were several times when he couldn't write with that kind of pleasure. His strength was intermittent, and his heart was extremely sullen. On the other hand, Chun Ang's strokes were free and easy. His strokes were extremely natural and unrestrained. Morong Bo tried to block his strokes several times, but he was forced by Chun Ang's splashing of ink. He only had enough time to parry. Seeing Chun Ang's clear weather after fast snow was getting smoother and smoother, while his own strokes were a complete mess. Morong Bo became anxious and decided to use the way of weapons to forcibly dismantle his strokes. In Duan Yu's eyes, he knew he had already lost. Since it's come to this, I might as well be a bit more straightforward. Morong Bo was determined in his heart. Regardless of the artistic conception of his strokes, He only used the most basic judge's brush technique. When the brush touched the edge of the edge of the brush fell steeply. The brush spread out, and the momentum was enough to retract the edge, forcing Chun-Ong to turn around to defend himself. His strength was incomparably exquisite. The horizontal stroke was like a piece of paper falling in the opposite direction, slowly moving forward but quickly returning back, strangling Chun-Ang's throat. Murongbo repeatedly used this 8 strokes of Yong, 8 kinds of force exertion techniques. Over and over again, he was unable to form a complete character. Only his strokes exerted strength, completely without any restraint. Obviously, he had the idea of forcing Chun-Ong to a draw. To his surprise, Chun-Ong burst into laughter. His brush changed from clear weather after fast snow to preface to the Orchid Pavilion. In the 9th year of Yonghe, the year is 10th Cho. The first character, Yong, was used to seal the vital acupoints on the side, horizontally restrain the edge of the weapon, vertically exerting strength, hook, flick, short flick, peck, restrain, one by one, forcing Murongbo to only have the strength to parry. When he wrote beginning of late spring, the character was like a dragon or snake rising from the land. Unexpectedly, the strength of the brush materialized in the air, sweeping horizontally and horizontally, unstoppable. A loud pa sound was heard on Murongbo's face. The tip of the brush drew a lightning-like crease on his face. Murongbo was so shocked that he was unable to control himself. Just as he was about to retreat, another character, Ji, came out from Chun-Ang's brush. The edge of the brush broke. Murongbo tried his best to resist, but a red mark appeared on his hand. These 20 characters, under Chun-Ang's pen, were soul-stirring, just like a celestial swordsmanship. Duan Yu's mind swayed, unable to control himself. Good martial art, good calligraphy. Even if Wang Yu-jun was still alive, he would only be this good. When had he ever seen such unrestrained brushwork? He only felt that this brushwork, no matter where it was used, had a kind of wonderful effect that could move one's mind. Murongbo's forehead was beaded with sweat. He tried to block left and right, but in the end, he decided to act shamelessly. He launched his agility skill, moving back and forth in the small inner chamber, while anxiously saying, "Good martial art. I admit defeat in this match. Governor, there's no harm in watching me brandish my brush." With a stomp of his foot, Murongbo soared into the air. His brush was like a giant axe swinging down. His strength was as vast as the Yangtze River, surging forward. Every stroke of his brush was like a tidal wave, like 10,000 galloping horses crashing in front of Chun-Ong. Under Chun-Ang's brush, several zhang's high waves were set off. It was really like turbid waves coming from the sky, overturning the rivers and overturning the seas, with the power to destroy everything. However, no matter how turbulent Murongbo's brush was, Chun-Ong was as steady as a mountain. Under his brush, the monstrous waves were as docile as a tamed sheep. It carried a sense of tranquility and docility. If one would say that Murongbo's brush was like the great river and the great sea, it was full of vigor. That Chun-Ong was like a towering mountain, towering and unmoving. That small brush was as big as a linen cloth. Unexpectedly, it had the lofty and unmoving spirit of Mount Tai. Chun-Ong stood alone with his left hand clasped behind his back, leisurely facing Murongbo's all-out attack. The small brush, as if it had a mind of its own, went against the surging waves like a swallow flying in the sky. Sometimes it rushed to the top of the wave. Sometimes it fell to the bottom of the wave, freely traversing the monstrous waves. Bit by bit, like the rising sun, the hazy mist dispersed. A corner of the Green Mountain was revealed, blocking the middle of the great river. No matter how the waves surged, the Green Mountain was happy and unmoving. The small brush slowly lifted the veil of the Green Mountain. A towering mountain stood motionless in the middle of the great river, blocking its path. No matter how the turbid waves rolled, it was unshakable. Murongbo's brush was getting narrower and narrower, as if there was a huge mountain blocking in front of him. No matter how his brush moved, it was still slowly pressing forward. The imposing manner was imposing, the pressure was overwhelming, making him want to vomit blood. He couldn't stop his momentum. He could only let the brush go further and further, gradually entering the extreme. In the end, it crashed into the mountain, shattering into pieces. Chapter 71. The moon filled the calm lake, and it was drizzling slightly. The moonlight couldn't be seen. Only the moonlight covered the world. On the surface of the water, there were countless tiny ripples swaying the moonlight. The cold wind, together with the raindrops, hit one's face, bringing a refreshing feeling of coolness. Chun-Ong stood alone on the boat, leisurely looking at the reflection of the lake. His face was tranquil, without a single ripple. Behind him, Murong-Bo, who was in a sorry state, looked at him with a gloomy expression. If I'm not mistaken, what Sire used just now? Was it my Murong family's joined finger? Chun-Ong gently flicked the raindrops, turned his head, and said, "When one's martial arts reach our realm, ordinary moves are no longer important." Just now, out of the 53 variations, 12 of them indeed came from joined finger. Murong-Bo sighed and said, "Fu'er has painstakingly practiced this finger technique for 20 years, but it's not as good as what you've achieved in 3 months. If I didn't know, I'm afraid I would also think that you've been practicing this finger technique for more than 50 years. Chun-Ong looked at him with a smile and said, "With this kind of finger technique, even if he practiced for another 100 years, he still wouldn't be my opponent." His voice didn't carry a hint of ridicule. It was just a plain statement. But when it reached Murong-Bo's ears, it was very unpleasant. His complexion changed, and after a long time he sighed and said, "That's true. Sire's martial arts are improving day by day, and you're not much older than Fu'er. Even if he wants to reach your current realm, he still needs 20 years. I'm afraid 20 years won't be enough." Chun-Ong flicked his fingers lightly, and a silver strand of rain fell in front of him. It was supposed to be the softest thing in the world, but he played with it like a silver pearl in his hand. With this flick, it suddenly shot out. In an instant, the world changed color. Countless crisscrossing ripples appeared on the surface of the water between Murong-Bo and Chun-Ong. The silver thread passed through the ripples and raindrops on the surface of the lake. It carried a colorless yet fatal force as it went straight for the center of Murong-Bo's eyebrows. The raindrops in the sky also drifted towards Murong-Bo along with this attack. Hidden within the 10,000 raindrops was Chun-Ang's one and only finger, which gave Murong-Bo a deep pressure. He shook his sleeves, and like an iron wall, he struck the surface of the water in front of him with his thick inner force. The water splashed several meters high, and like an overwhelming wave, it blocked in front of him. Thousands of silver threads were left on the other side of the waves. Only a silver light broke through the waves and shot in. It hit Murong-Bo's fluttering sleeves and caused a violent ripple. Even the boat that Murong-Bo was on was pushed a few feet away. Flower-pinching finger. Murong-Bo was horrified. Chun-Ong unexpectedly used the raindrops as a chess piece and imbued a strand of flower-pinching finger's power. One must know that water was the softest thing in the world. It was formless and formless. To be able to use water as a hidden weapon, it could be said to be unheard of. To be able to use it for dozens of steps without exhaustion, it was even more like a myth. Before he could even put down his sleeves, a piece of chest-size cloth floated down from his chest, revealing the color of his chest. This time, Murong-Bo could not even maintain his composure as he revealed an aghast expression. Flower-pinching finger's power could be imbued with the raindrops. It was already inconceivable. However, Chun-Ong unexpectedly kept the power of flower-pinching fingers silent and formless. He made the power of his finger go through Murong-Bo's subduing demon technique and left a mark on his chest. This kind of martial art could be said to be extremely terrifying. Sure enough, 20 years is not enough. Murong-Bo roused his spirit and focused his gaze on his finger. Looking for an opportunity, he pointed his finger at the silver thread in front of him. A drop of ice froze the raindrops, and at this point, an icicle shot out. On the other side, Chunong smiled and flicked 3 times in front of him. A drop of soft water shot out like an arrow. The force was incomparably fierce. If it hit a person's body, it would not be inferior to steel. It would be able to shatter the bones. His raindrops were as thick as mercury, unlike Murongbo's, which was condensed into ice. Just this point alone made Murongbo lose. Although the force of ice was strong, Chunong used an invisible object to support the force, which was much stronger than his ice finger. Your Duoluo leaf finger is indeed very overbearing. Murongbo waved his finger 3 times, and only then did he scatter 3 drops of water. On the other hand, Chunong lightly grabbed the icicle and pinched it between his fingers. Old Mister's joined finger is also unparalleled in this world. Chunong smiled faintly, and with a chi sound, the icicle disappeared. Even Murongbo could not see its shadow anymore. In the sky and on the ground, countless raindrops splashed, and Murongbo could hear a dense, rustling sound. Not a sound could be heard. Only a bit of warning in his heart made him extremely vigilant. Without any basis, Murongbo pointed his finger at the empty space. An explosive sound rang out in the air, and dozens of raindrops burst apart, as if 2 powerful forces suddenly collided with each other. Water mist filled the air. Murongbo's ears were dripping with sweat, and he said with a trembling voice, "Formless finger of disaster. The Duoluo actually used water vapor as the foundation to support the force of your finger. Admirable. Admirable." We said the first word of admiration. Murongbo was still on the boat. When he said the second word of admiration, he had already fallen into the lake. Murongbo dipped his sleeves under the water and sprinkled a stream of water. His toes touched the surface of the water, and he kicked a water ball. This was Shaolin's unique skill, shadow pursuing kick and dharma palm. However, Murongbo's 2 palm and leg forces, which contained all of his strength, were slightly shaken by Chunong and exploded in the air. Chunang's 5 fingers rotated, little by little. Some were slow, some were heavy, some were incomparably fast, some were silent. All the martial arts that Murongbo had seen in his life were all carried by a little bit of rain, forcing him into a very difficult situation. He could only use all of his martial arts one by one. The 2 of them used the lake as a chessboard, the lake water and the rain as chess pieces. Under the moonlight, they were playing a game of chess. Murongbo had already forgotten about the competition. He was using all of his strength to deal with this unprecedentedly powerful enemy. But Chunong was only forcing him to use his full potential. The martial arts that Murongbo had been learning for many years, the subtlety of it was somewhat similar. He had painstakingly practiced the Shaolin Temple's consummate skill for more than 20 years, the hunter martial arts, and his own Murong family's consummate skill had become Chunong's target of study. If in the beginning, Chunong relied on his profound cultivation of martial arts to forcefully control them, then now, under Murongbo's polishing and teaching, these unique skills had a layer of indescribable flavor. The subtlety of being practiced to the bone was revealed from Chunong's movements. All kinds of martial arts wisdom in the library were carefully chewed, and even more subtle subtleties were dug out. Murongbo was forced to the extreme. He exerted all his strength to slap the water surface. He had forgotten all the rules and threw himself at Chunong. His right hand pointed, and it was the pinching flower finger that Chunong had just used. The hidden power of this finger was extremely sinister. When Murongbo used it, it was even more murderous than any Shaolin eminent monk. It was a move that completely abandoned all mercy and holding back, and only emphasized on power. In Murongbo's hands, the power of the dignified Buddhist martial arts was greatly increased, but it also had a taste of advancing without retreating. Its killing power was extremely extreme. Even if the Shaolin eminent monk who created this martial art was still alive, he would still have to avoid its sharp edge. Unfortunately, his opponent was Chunong. Only Chunong could have a smile on his face. His face was always calm and at ease, as if there was a deep understanding in the unseen world. According to the legend of the Zen sect, when Buddhist nun Sakya preached on a holy mountain, he held a golden Buddha flower in his hand and showed it to everyone. Everyone was silent. Only Kasyapa smiled. This was the pinching flower finger. Buddha held a flower, Kasyapa smiled. But Chunang's fingers were incomparably gentle. Every time his left hand flicked, it was as if he wanted to flick off the dewdrop on the flower in his right hand, but he was afraid to shake off the flower petals. Murong Bo did not see the power of the finger, but he felt a pain in his chest. His body also shot out and fell on the lake. The flower blooms to see the person sees me. This finger had already reached the state of being and not being. It was as if he had gained an epiphany. It was indistinct and could not be obtained. It had already reached the supreme state of being formless, colorless, and intangible. Even if the abbot of Shaolin Temple was here, he could only sigh in admiration. Chenong bent his finger and sat on the surface of the water. There was only a lotus leaf under him that served as a foil to him. He gently stroked it, and the silver threads in the sky fell down. They gathered together and condensed into a tangible force. With the drizzle as the strings and the world as the zither, he started playing softly. Chenong bent his finger and pulled on a silver thread. A soundless sound filled the air. The surface of the lake was like a huge speaker that started trembling slightly. Clang! A soft sound spread through the entire lake. Even Wang Yuyan, who was far away at Montua Villa, looked up in puzzlement. She asked softly, "Who's playing the zither?" Chenang's pupils were dark blue. All of his thoughts and senses stopped at that moment. Time seemed to have stopped. The drizzle falling, the calm surface of the lake, and the beautiful moonlight turned into a still picture at that moment. It instantly turned into eternity, and then into eternity. Only the faint sound of the zither could be heard, as if it came from beyond the heavens. The drizzle that filled the sky gathered together to reveal the white moonlight. Was it real or just an illusion? An invisible hand gently moved the millions of strands of silver threads. That finger was like a flower. It was soundless, colorless, formless, and formless, but could move the world. The sound of the zither could be heard, but it was also soundless. The melody surpassed the limits of human hearing, but when the lake trembled, people could still hear it. The invisible sound wave permeated the entire lake, and everything started to tremble, including Murong Bo's organs, blood vessels, meridians, and even his inner force. As Chunang's fingers danced, they trembled uncontrollably. Murong Bo's mind was muddled, and he could only dance randomly under the sound of the zither. Countless tiny and complicated energies seeped into his body, controlling, guiding, and even changing his inner force. Murong Bo was like a puppet that was easily controlled from his body to his mind. In front of such a terrifying martial technique, the life-death talismans were just child's play. Controlling a person's life and death was not scary, but controlling a person's mind was extremely horrifying. The bewitching origin power was born from the sound of the zither. It was more powerful than any other mental technique. It changed Murong Bo's mind. As he danced more and more crazily, the invisible energies controlled him more and more tightly, and the sound of the zither gradually reached a climax. In the end, with the sound of the zither strings snapping, everything fell silent and everything calmed down. The drizzle fell again, and the moonlight gradually became blurry. It was drowned in the rain, and it seemed like nothing had happened. Chenong waved his hand and sighed. Chapter 72. In the Hall of Great Strength, under the golden Buddha statue with a kind face, several old monks with white hair and beards lowered their heads, silent. The atmosphere was very depressing. In front of them, there were several things: a bent Buddhist staff, a broken Buddhist commandment blade, half a broken copper alms bowl, an iron lotus seed, a removed door plank, and a few other inconspicuous things. After a while, there were hurried footsteps outside the hall. A few senior monks of the Xian generation walked in quickly. They put their palms together and greeted the abbot and the several presidents. They said in a deep voice, "Abbot, you summoned us in such a hurry. Did something big happen? Xian turned to the president of the commandment yard, Master Xianji, and said, Junior brother Xianji, please explain the reason to us. Xianji replied, yes. He took 2 steps forward. He was in charge of the commandments and had always been impartial. All the monks in the temple feared him, so his words carried more weight. He said in a clear voice, I don't know if you remember that the imperial court once sent someone to inform us to restrain the monks, strictly check the commandments, and obey the 36 martial prohibition orders. Xianin bowed and said, the imperial court strictly investigated the illegal activities, but it did happen. Xianji sighed and said, previously, monk Zhi Guang sent a letter to the abbot and told him about a very urgent matter. The imperial court suspected that someone in Shaolin was colluding with the Xianbei Muron clan, intending to provoke the war between Liao and Song. The commander-in-chief of the Forbidden Martial Hall, Chunong, was entrusted by the emperor to go to Shaolin on the 15th of May. At that time, more than half of the famous martial artists in the world will come to Shaolin to be witnesses. The monks were silent. Only Xianin sighed and said, we were also deceived. This matter only needs to be explained to the imperial court. Alas! First, there were foreign monks from India and several Badana from Mount Wutai who asked us about the theft of scriptures from Polo Star. Then, the Forbidden Martial Hall came to investigate the case of Yemen Pass. Shaolin is unfair. Master Xianji picked up the Buddhist staff in front of him and said, not only that, do you know about Sugu? Is it the one who committed the sin of lust and became a layman disciple, the one named Zhang Lai? Master Xuandu frowned. Yes, it's him. He also managed to make a fortune in his secular family. He was originally a Shaolin Temple disciple and diligently practiced martial arts. He could be considered the first in the Dharma courtyard. He even got the approval of junior brother Xian and to learn some of the true meaning of the breaking Buddhist commandment blade. Unfortunately, his 6 senses were not pure, so he went to the outer sanctum. His fierce tiger blade can be considered to have some prestige in the martial arts world. Master Xianji sighed. Evil creature, Xian, and then put his palms together and sighed. He closed his eyes and said nothing. Xianin said hesitantly, it is said that the 6th fan school found out that he secretly killed his father-in-law's family and forced his wife to death. Then, he took over their family business. At the same time, he did many illegal things. He used his kung fu to eradicate the local rich families and made a lot of money. After the abbot heard about it, he immediately sent senior brother Xian Nan to clean up the sect. Xian Nan said bitterly, that day, I heard that Xiao Feng was going to harm our temple, so I left to investigate. I asked junior brother Xian Su to capture that traitorous disciple on my behalf. I didn't dare to disobey him. Who knew that junior brother Xian Su was hot-tempered and clashed with the martial prohibition hall experts who were sent to capture the criminal. Junior brother Xian Su did it for the sake of Shaolin's eternal reputation. Not only did the martial prohibition hall capture my Shaolin disciple, but they also wanted to publicly decapitate him and announce his crimes. Think about how ignorant the common people would look at Shaolin if they knew that there was such a scum in Shaolin. Junior brother Xian Su only wanted to capture that traitorous disciple and hand him over to the commandment hall, but Xian Nan said hesitantly, what happened? The hot-tempered Xian sure asked, but the martial prohibition hall wasn't willing. They wanted to publicly sentence that person and have him tried in public. They wanted to compensate the victims with all of his wealth and confiscate the rest. That dragon stallion guard of the martial prohibition hall even ridiculed. Shaolin is like a dove that feeds on carrion. The flesh and blood of the people are all used by Shaolin. He also said, Shaolin is cleaning up the scum of the sect, swallowing the property of Shaolin, and so on. In a moment of righteous indignation, Xian Su got into a conflict. Nonsense! Xian sure slammed the table and stood up, saying angrily, Shaolin uses those ill-gotten gains to help the poor. We are monks. What use do these things have? Master Xian Ji continued. Junior brother Xian Su also thought so. He and the Dragon Stallion Guard had a disagreement and started fighting. Even Su Gu didn't take the opportunity to escape, but went forward to help. Xiannan said. That evil creature still has a conscience. The other monks also nodded. They felt that although Su Gu deserved to die 10,000 times for his crimes, he still had a trace of true knowledge. Junior brother Xian Su's ordinary staff technique is very dignified, and Su Gu's Buddhist commandment-breaking blade is also very swift and fierce. But Xian Ji raised the Buddhist staff and the Buddhist commandment blade in his hands, gesturing, "Take a look." The copper Buddhist staff was as thick as a bowl, hard and heavy, but there was a clear handprint on it. It was a full 3 inches deep, as if it had been poured out. On the Buddhist commandment blade, that was as cold as snow, there was a clear thumbprint at the edge of the blade. The monks all sucked in a breath of cold air. Xian Ji asked, "Junior brother Xian Kuei, can your Vajra strength finger leave a fingerprint on this refined steel?" "Junior brother Xian Kuei, can your Vajra strength palm leave a palm print on the copper staff?" Xian Kuei and Xian Kuei looked at each other, then simultaneously channeled their energy into their palms and pinched the 2 objects. After a long while, the 2 of them retreated, sweating profusely. The crowd went forward to take a look. Sure enough, there were 2 more finger and palm prints. However, the finger marks were blurry and the palm prints were only half an inch deep. The main hall fell into a deathly silence. Every Shaolin disciple had a grave expression on their faces. After a long while, Xianyin said in a deep voice, "The experts of the imperial court are indeed extraordinary. How is junior brother Xian Su?" Junior brother Xian Su has been imprisoned by the 6th Fan School for obstructing official business, and Su Gu. Xiannan paused for a moment, then slowly said someone broke his saber technique with 1 move, broke his saber with 2 moves, and took his life with 3 moves. Amitabha Buddha. The monks chanted in unison. Su Gu is one of the best of the Su generation in Shaolin. He is also a first-class expert in Jianghu. In the Central Plains, the name of Fierce Tiger Saber can also be considered as a top figure. "I didn't expect this. I really didn't expect this." Xianyin sighed, then asked, "What about junior brother Xian Su?" "He also used 3 moves." Xiannan said with difficulty. Xianyin closed his eyes and did not speak. Xian Shi took over and said, "I wonder if it is the commander of the Martial Prohibition Hall." Abbot Xian Ci raised his head, and the monks all looked at him. Xian Ci picked up the half-copper bowl in front of him and said, "This is the copper bowl found under the palm of an outer sect disciple, peerless iron palm ruler." The muscles and bones in both of his palms were shattered. When the crowd saw the mark, a scene of a fist and a palm colliding appeared in their minds. "This is an iron lotus seed dug out from between the eyebrows of an outer sect disciple, Luo Zhen, the 8-armed Luohan." 8-armed Luohan was a master of Shaolin's concealed weapons. Although he did not practice martial arts in Shaolin, his father was one of the top masters in Shaolin's outer sect. Even Xiannan was taught by him. Luo Zhen's talent was even better than his father's. His concealed weapon skill made the thieves tremble with fear. However, the 6th Fan School had revealed that he was the greatest master of the Lulin Forest in the Central Plains. He controlled dozens of strongholds and mountains, and was the famous leader of the Lulin Forest in the Central Plains. There is also the door that Ghost Shadow killed, the chopsticks in Donor Zhou's hand, and the jade pendant on the chest of an outer sect disciple, Lu Chang'an. Xian Ci showed them one by one. Ghost Shadow was a master of lightness skill, but he was killed by a door. Iron Palm, Zhou Chengwang's hands were pierced by a chopstick. Lu Chang'an, who was famous for his left and right flower-piercing hands, was hit in the chest by a palm. Even his jade pendant was not broken, but 13 of his ribs were broken. These were done by the commanders of the Martial Prohibition Hall. Xian Shi pointed at the pile of things in disbelief. How is this possible? The Martial Prohibition Hall is so powerful." "No." Xian Ci sighed and said, "Most of the commanders of the Martial Prohibition Hall went to Shixia to suppress the Class 1 hall. Even Eunuch Tong, one of the 2 commanders, personally went there. He led 13 commanders to chase after the old princess of Shixia to Tianshan. The other commander, Huang Shang, suppressed the martial arts world in Jiangnan. and their military governor, Chunong. Xianxi could not help but pause. The Shaolin monks also narrowed their eyes, as if this name had some magic power. Xianxi hesitated and said, "He is in the Murong family of Gusu." He did not say what Chunong had done, but just vaguely dealt with this part. There are only two commanders in the martial arts world of the Central Plains, and both of them are staying in Shaolin. Xianxi could not help but smile bitterly. These two commanders living in the lower house of Shaolin were not so much staying as monitoring. The closer it was to the Shaolin assembly on the 15th of May, the more closely they monitored. The Shaolin monks were dissatisfied with this. Someone snorted coldly. Xian Yin pretended not to hear it. He asked, could it be that the one who did it was not from the Martial Prohibition Hall? It was the four super arresters of 6 Fan School, cold-blooded and ruthless, and Iron Hand Chase. But aren't they chasing fugitives on the blacklist everywhere? You don't have to guess anymore. Xianxi sighed and said, it was just an ordinary dragon stallion guard. How is it possible? The masters of the Shaolin Temple, their meditation skills destroyed, stood up one after another. Their faces were livid. Although they had thought of this possibility, no one dared to believe it. Now that Abbot Xianxi had pointed it out, how could they believe it? Before they could come to a conclusion, a disciple hurriedly came to report, Abbot, Chief, something bad has happened. Master Shinshan of Mount Wutai and Master Ziluoxing of Tianzhu are going down the mountain and have a conflict with the Martial Prohibition Hall. Chapter 73. Mount Wutai's Qing Liang temple's Shun Shan Shangren was very famous in the Wulin world. Together with Reverend Xianxi, they were known as the Subduing the Dragon and Subduing the Tiger, to Luan. In terms of martial arts skill, it was said that Shun Shan Shangren was above Abbot Xianxi. When such a person clashed with the Forbidden Martial Hall, it was natural that the Shaolin Temple would be badly battered. Those who came were not only the exalted ones from the Divine Mountain, but also Reverend Guanxin of the Grand Shengwa Temple in Kaifeng Prefecture, Reverend Daoqing of the Pudu Temple in Jiangnan, Reverend Juexian of the Donglin Temple on Mount Lu, and Reverend Rongji of the Jingying Temple in Chang. Even if their kung fu skills were not that high, they were respected enough, not to mention that their kung fu skills were not inferior to Xianxi's. However, these masters were now tightly blocked and couldn't move at all. In front of them, a young man wearing a flying fish red robe blocked the way with a smile. Although his face was warm, the knife in his hand was raised without any trace of politeness. Most people would be more polite when they saw monks, but these two did not even have the slightest hint of apology on their faces. Xianxi put his palms together, bowed, and said, Benefactors, why are you standing in front of these reverends? They are not people of Shaolin, they are Buddhist monks. Now that we are going down the mountain, would the benefactors please make way for us? Lana thanks you. Greetings, Master. A young man with a young and inexperienced face clumsily put his palms together and said, The governor has given the order that before the Shaolin Temple Assembly, martial artists are only allowed to enter Mount Shaoshi and are not allowed to leave. Since all of you are well-versed in martial arts, I would like to trouble you to wait until the 15th of May before leaving. We don't have time to wait for him. Great Master Shinshan's expression was gloomy. He was short, but his voice was surprisingly loud. I don't know which military governor you are. I'm an otherworldly person, so I'm not under his jurisdiction. Get out of my way. Master, you're an otherworldly person, but not just monks, even bodhisattvas have to be controlled by us. The young man replied with a smile. In our imperial court, not to mention the secular world, even the positions of the gods and Buddhas in heaven have to be decided. A few days ago, the commander-in-chief said that the Jade Emperor was an obscene sacrifice and asked the imperial court to revert to God Hao Tian. May I know which god you are worshipping, and have you obtained our permission? You, Master Shun Shan, was infuriated. How should I address you, benefactor? Xianxi hurriedly mediated. I am Duo Half-Bodied, the third yellow commander of the Martial Prohibition Hall's stalwart dragon guard. Greetings, Grandmaster Xianxi. Another commander beside him cupped his fists towards them and said, More than half. His face was dark, and his expression was indifferent. It was unclear whether it was because he didn't like to talk or because he didn't want to pay attention to Xian Xian was taken aback and asked hesitantly, "Your names?" These two people's names, no matter how one looked at them, didn't seem to be normal people. Not to mention Xian, the other grandmasters also had some doubts. Xian bluntly said, "You two should report your real names. The grandmasters are of virtue and prestige. They won't argue with you." "You misunderstood. This is my real name." The young man laughed and said, "I was originally called 9-2.5 because my father sold me to a salesman for 6 taels of silver. After the commander-in-chief rescued me from the devil's den, he said, 'I'm called 9-2.5, but I was only sold for 6 taels. Your father didn't know how to count, so he called me duo half.'" The dark-faced young man next to him said 2 more words for taels. Xian thought for a while and then realized that he had been sold for 4 taels, which was more than half of the young man next to him. These two people's names were really rough. "Amapa," this old monk misspoke. Xian chanted the name of Buddha. "May I know your original secular names?" This old monk can also address you. Xian felt that this was not appropriate and asked aloud. "My original name was Benin. Benefactor's name is very Buddha-like." Xian revealed a warm smile. "That's natural." The young man smiled and said, "This is the name my father asked the Grandmaster on the mountain to give me. I think it's the temple's Grandmaster Xiantong." The few people turned around in surprise and saw Xiantong nodding slightly, indicating that it seemed to be the case. Before they could say anything, they heard the young man say slowly, "Unfortunately, my father owed rent to the Shaolin Temple, and the supervisor kept urging him to pay, so he had no choice but to sell me. The salesman sent me to the acrobatic garden and made me an actor." Although he was still smiling, the faces of the Shaolin Temple's eminent monks were already extremely ugly. What kind of place was the acrobatic garden? To put it nicely, it was an actor, but everyone knew that the boys there were actually lowly catamites. This kind of thing made them feel bad. Xian could only smile and said, "Benefactor, you are really lucky to escape from the abyss of bitterness. I don't know if you have reunited with your family. So, Grandmaster, just call me Duo Half." The young man put his palms together and said, "As for my parents, I have visited several neighbors recently. They said that during the drought a few years ago, they couldn't pay the rent and were driven out. They must have died in some corner." When he said this, there was no sadness on his face. No one knew whether it was because his tears had dried up or because he was not close to his parents. The Shaolin Temple didn't dare to think so much. They only thought in their hearts, "This is not good." One after another, their expressions became vigilant. Only Xiantong opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but his expression became gloomy. There was an indescribable expression in his eyes as he looked at more than half-bodied. It seemed benevolent and guilty at the same time. However, more than half-bodied sensed something and turned his head away as he looked at him. Great Master Shinshan sneered several times and said in a loud voice, "This humble monk has admired the Shaolin Temple for a long time. Today's visit has really broadened my horizons." The hostility in his words made the Shaolin Temple's eminent monks turn solemn. But then they heard Duo Half slowly say, "Mount Wutai is in no way inferior. More than half of the people around me were born at the foot of Mount Wutai. I have heard of your great name for a long time." Great Master Shinshan felt as if his neck was being squeezed, and he didn't make any sound. Was there anyone else's land at the foot of Mount Wutai other than their temple of Qingliang? He waved his sleeves in annoyance and said, "I don't care what your names are. Don't even think about stopping me today." He waved his sleeves as he said this and rushed forward. The people of Shaolin Temple turned pale with fright when they saw this. They hadn't expected that such an eminent monk wouldn't have the slightest bit of willpower. Xiantong cried out in alarm, "Watch out!" He looked on helplessly as Great Master Shinshan exerted his strength in his arms and rammed against Duo Half. How could Mount Wutai's art of heart and chi be a small matter? The force of this blow was probably heavier than that of an elephant. In fact, Even Xiantong wouldn't be able to avoid breaking his bones and muscles, let alone a young man like Duo Half. Great Master Shinshan swept his sleeves like an iron broom. It was powerful enough to scrape off a layer of flesh from a person's face. However, Duo Half's expression didn't change in the slightest when he faced the force of this blow. It seemed as if his skin had been coated with a layer of gold paint. It quickly turned into a clear golden color and was suffused with a metallic luster. Great Master Shinshan's blow seemed as if he was fanning him. His sleeves hit Duo Half's face and exploded into tattered rags. Indestructible Vajra divine art! Great Master Shinshan exclaimed in shock. However, a golden arm grabbed his neck before he could say anything. He felt as if a steel ring was wrapped around his neck, and he couldn't break free no matter how hard he tried. So, he shot a meaningful glance at Xerxing, who was standing beside him. The Indian divine monk's arm seemed to have doubled in length as he grabbed Duo Half's arm. His body seemed to have no bones at all, and he used an unfathomable angle to perform a strange move. It was so strange that it was hard to believe. The Shaolin Temple monks were well aware that such a strange move couldn't be avoided under such a sudden situation. However, Duo Half didn't seem to have any intention of dodging. He lifted Great Master Shinshan up and stretched out his hand to hit a boulder nearby. He didn't allow the Indian monk to hit him, but only a loud clanging sound could be heard. It was as if he had hit a bronze statue. Great Master Shinshan was hit hard against the boulder, and his face was covered with blood. However, the young man didn't stop. He continued to hit Great Master Shinshan's head against the boulder. The people of Shaolin Temple were so shocked that their limbs went limp. It wouldn't matter if Great Master Shinshan was hit once or twice, but Great Master Shinshan might not be able to survive a third time. Before they could act, they heard the Indian monk scream in pain. Duo Half's hands seemed to be holding a ball of fire, and Zerua Xing screamed in pain. Half of his body was scorched black, and the other half was covered in a layer of white frost. Zerua Xing couldn't resist at all, and could only struggle in vain. His bones could drill through any part of the wall, but he couldn't escape Duo Half's simple grasp. At this moment, no one from Shaolin Temple dared to step forward. Although these two were young, they were already top-notch experts in Jianghu. They didn't have the internal energy of Great Master Shinshan, and neither did they have the strange moves of Zerua Xing. Therefore, they could only look at Abbot Xianxi. Only Xiantong stepped forward to meet them. Duo Half didn't make a move. He handed the sacred mountain to Xiantong and said, "Sorry to trouble you, Great Master. We didn't want to do this, so please don't make things difficult for us." The Shaolin monks lifted the sacred mountain and said, "It's no big deal. It's no big deal." Xianxi lowered his eyebrows and said, "Shaolin Temple will obey the imperial court's orders." He looked at the half-dead Xerxing and said, "My friend from India, it was an unintentional mistake. Please forgive him." Half-bodied tossed Xerxing to the ground like he was a piece of trash, not even sparing a glance. Xiannan saw that the two were about to turn around and leave, so he couldn't help but ask, "Benefactor, is that martial art of yours the Vajra body?" Duo Half turned around and said with a smile, "It's the extreme titanium body of the Martial Prohibition Hall's 36 ultimate techniques. It's not the Shaolin Temple's Vajra body." As he said this, the metallic luster of his skin flowed like water, and his wriggling muscles looked like they were alive. Indeed, it wasn't the Shaolin Temple's martial arts. The two of them rested not far away from the Shaolin Temple, as if nothing had happened between them and the Shaolin Temple. The Shaolin Temple monks looked at each other. If a commander was already so powerful, then what about the other two lieutenants, and even Governor Chenong? The monks didn't dare to think about the four great villains and the cult leader of the Ming cult. Xianxi sighed and said, "Shaolin Temple, Shaolin Temple." Chapter 74. Xiao Feng saw the bustling crowd of Beggar Clan disciples, supporting each other as they walked toward Mount Shaoshi. He knew that today was the day when the imperial court in Shaolin would discuss important matters in the Wulin world. He remembered the happy days when he and his Beggar Clan brothers ate wine and drank meat together, but now they were like enemies. His mood was complicated. At this moment, a slender hand grabbed his rough palm. Aju leaned on him and softly asked, "Xiao Dai, what are you thinking about?" Xiao Feng held her hand tightly and laughed heartily. "I am thinking that from now on, the Xiao is no longer a lonely, lowly person who is looked down upon by other people. In this world, there's at least one person. There is one person." He looked at Aju's bright as stars' eyes. Momentarily, he was speechless. "There is one person who respects you, admires you, is grateful to you, is willing to stay by your side forever and ever, generation after generation, to endure hardships, humiliation, hardships and hardships together with you." Aju looked at him. There was something in her words. It was so thick that it could not be dispelled. Xiao Feng's heart was surging with something that he could not describe. He felt that with her company, even if the road ahead was a mountain of daggers or a sea of fire, he would be willing to endure it. "There's a tea shed ahead. This place is not far from Mount Shaoshi. Let's go take a rest." Seeing the shed ahead, Xiao Feng said to Aju with a smile. The two of them entered the tea shed together. The waiter hurriedly came forward and said, "Are the two distinguished guests of Shaolin?" "Yes, we have been to Shaolin." Xiao Feng laughed and said. He had never cared about his status, whether it was peddlers, pawns, or waiters begging for food. He always had the utmost respect. Hearing this, the waiter beamed with joy. He handed over a slip of paper and said, "Then this must be for you." Xiao Feng opened the slip of paper and saw the first line, "Mr." He hastily closed the slip of paper and thought, "This is not for me. The waiter must have made a mistake. I must not read it anymore." He handed the slip of paper to the waiter and said, "This is not for me. Brother Xiao, you have made a mistake." When the waiter heard this, he immediately frowned and scratched his ears and cheeks in distress. That guest left a note and left. He only said that he was going to give it to someone who could tell that he was an extraordinary man. "I've waited here for 3 days and only saw you, the guest. You're worthy of those words. If not, then what should we do?" When Aju heard the words extraordinary, her eyes narrowed. A girl may not be very happy when others praise her, but when someone praises her lover, her heart feels like it has eaten honey. She said in a good voice, "Which guest left the note?" "Xiao Ergo, why don't you tell us?" The waiter finally found someone who was willing to listen to his grievances. He served tea to the two people, pointed to an official road on the side, and said, "A few days ago in the afternoon, 2 groups of people came to my tea shop. They were all Jianghu heroes with sabers and swords. These past few days, there have been a lot of people like this. I didn't care. In any case, the government officials were not far away. They didn't dare to act blindly without thinking. Until I heard a guest greeting, I got up and went out to help him tie up his horse. When I looked up, I saw that the guest had a beard, leopard's eyes, and tiger's eyes. He looked very awe-inspiring." Xiao Feng thought, this must be the person who left the note. The waiter waited for 3 days, but did not take a fancy to any of the Jianghu heroes who passed by. As soon as he saw that person, he was so shocked. It could be seen that this person is also an extremely extraordinary man. Xiao Feng was immediately delighted and asked, "Did he say his name?" "He did not." The waiter frowned and said, "As soon as that guest saw the 2 groups of people in the tea shop, he laughed loudly and said, 'The swarm of bees on the yellow granite hill. I have finally found you.'" The swarm of bees on the yellow granite hill. When Xiao Feng heard this, he frowned deeply. This group of people were the famous scum of Jianghu. They were bandits that everyone wanted to beat up. They knew that there were many people who wanted to take care of them by any means possible, so they never stayed in one place for too long. Wherever they went, it was a tragic scene that angered both man and God. Because they were roaming about and committing crimes, their martial arts were high, and they had the advantage of numbers. Those who sought revenge and could not bear to see their evil deeds. Often when a group of people could not find them, one person would go up and become a ghost under their saber. This group of people was incomparably clever. They were vicious in their work, and they had been free and unfettered for a long time. Xiao Feng also wanted to eradicate these scum, but their whereabouts were uncertain, and the beggar clan had a lot of matters to attend to. In the end, it was left unsettled, and this was a matter of regret in his heart. That brother is alone. He is in danger. Xiao Feng knew that the swarm of bees were proficient in joint attacks. When they joined hands, ordinary martial arts masters would not be able to last one round. He could not help but be secretly worried. The waiter continued, "That guest is very powerful. He used the chopsticks on my table and nailed down 3 people. Each of them was pierced through the right eye. I sat here, but that guest did not attack me. Instead, he led that group of people outside." "Ah!" A Zhu cried out in alarm. She was holding a chopstick, which was made of light bamboo wood. It was extremely swift, not to mention using it as a hidden weapon. Even if she raised her hand and threw it, it would be blown away by the wind. To be able to use such a thing to nail 3 yellow bees to death, this kind of martial arts was really frightening and formidable. "Good." Xiao Feng laughed loudly and said, "Good man, if I meet him, I will definitely drink 3 big bowls of wine with him. This kind of heroic spirit is enough to go with the wine." When the waiter heard this, he also clapped his hands. He took out a jar of local sorghum wine from behind and poured a bowl for Xiao Feng. This wine was very coarse, but Xiao Feng did not care and drank it in one gulp. "Good hero, I have seen martial artists coming and going, but only you and that guest looked at us seriously," the waiter said excitedly and poured another bowl for Xiao Feng. "That group of bees are not good people. They are very despicable. Some people use fishing nets and iron chains to entangle them. Some people used hidden weapons to throw them from afar. I hid in the back and saw that they were very skilled in coordination. Many people went up together. I was worried. With so many people going up, even if that guest had 3 heads and 6 arms, he would not be able to handle it." Xiao Feng laughed and said, "Hearing you say that, my heart was somewhat relieved. Since you said that, I believe that brother will definitely make a spectacular move and beat the swarm of bees until they piss in their pants." Although his words were vulgar, when the waiter heard it, it was incomparably intimate. "Isn't it piss in their pants?" That guest stretched out his hands and grabbed the fishing nets and ropes in his bosom. With all his strength, those people who were pulling the ropes flew up and blocked the hidden weapons. The waiter said excitedly, "Oh my God, with just one lift, 4 or 5 people flew up. I'm afraid that he has the strength of 1,000 jin. Such a good man, such good martial arts. It's a pity that I have not been able to see it." Xiao Feng drank another bowl and sighed. That group of bees, the one in the lead, was an evil man with a scar on his face. When he saw me hiding in the back, he grabbed me and pushed me in front of him, saying, "That guy, if you're not worried about his life, then come up." At that time, I thought, it's over, this time it's over. In my heart, I thought that I would definitely die. "Sir, when you encountered such a situation, do you think that you would care about a waiter like me?" Xiao Feng laughed heartily and said, "Since it is an innocent person, I would rather die than bring disaster to other people's lives. That's why I said that as soon as I saw you, sir, I knew that you were a hero that I have never seen in my life." That guest was the same as you. When he saw me in front of him, he did not use his palm to strike back, nor did he use his hidden weapons to counterattack. He only blocked left and right and knocked down a few people. The waiter was moved and said, "It's a pity that those people are even more despicable than I imagined." Xiao Feng slammed the table and frowned, saying, "Are they using you to threaten that brother?" "That's right," that scar-faced boss hid behind me and said to that guest, "Quickly stop, or else I will kill this person." That guest replied, No, if I stop, I will become a ghost under your knife. This way, that little brother may not be able to escape with his life, and you will harm even more people. I might as well kill all of you one by one. If the little brother is unlucky, I will give him a grand burial and cut my throat in front of his grave to pay for his life." Xiao Feng was so excited that he drank 3 bowls of wine and said, "If I encountered such a thing, I could only do the same. How could I let an evil person escape with his life and harm even more people? It's just that I can't avenge you. But there are people who love me who cannot pay for your life." The waiter said, "How could I want that? I only wish that I could roar, 'Hero, you can avenge me. If you can save one person, consider it as paying for my life.' Unfortunately, My mouth was covered and I could not say anything. The funny thing was that the scar-faced man's hands and feet turned cold when he heard this. But he pretended to be fierce and said, "Tie your hands, and I will let him go." Aju anxiously looked at the waiter and thought, how can there be such a thing? To tie one's hands in front of these evil people, isn't that the same as throwing away one's life? Xiao Feng's expression did not change. He calmly listened. That guest saw that the evil people had the heart to fight to the death. So he simply picked up the iron chain under his feet and wrapped it around his hands 3 times. The scar-faced man did not comply and wrapped it 3 more times. The scar-faced man saw that he had the upper hand and went back on his words, saying, "It's not enough for you to tie your hands. You have to tie all 4 of your limbs." Xiao Feng sighed and said, "That brother must have done it, because if he did not, those people would not be able to take advantage of him and would think that they have a chance of winning. So they would still want to take your life. Only when those people think that they have a chance of winning will they relax their vigilance." The waiter said, "Exactly. I saw the guest tie his whole body and was puzzled. Later on I thought that if the guest tied his hands, the group of evil people would feel that they were no longer a threat. So they would probably kill him. But if the guest did not tie his hands, those people would think that they were going to die, and there was a 50% chance that I would be killed, so I really could not advance or retreat. Those evil people took a thick layer of iron chain. Even an angry King Kong would not be able to struggle free. At that time I thought, those evil people are raising the stakes bit by bit, just like gambling. In the end, the guest and I unknowingly lost everything." Presumably that scar-faced man also thought the same, so he let go of my neck and laughed complacently. This is a moment that I will never forget for the rest of my life. Xiao Feng and Aju both looked at him. The red cloud on the waiter's face disappeared. He grabbed the wine jar next to him and poured it into his mouth. Xiao Feng laughed heartily and clinked his bowl with his. The 2 of them looked like friends. Xiao Feng heroically said, "Drinking wine with a good man is one of life's greatest joys."